Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 16. Broken Pieces, or Mutiny on the La Sirena.
Tell me about Data. What was he like?
Well, Data was brave, curious, very gentle. He had a child's wisdom, unclouded by habit or bias. He made us all laugh, except when he was trying to make us laugh.
And you loved him.
Yes, in my way.
Did he love you?
Data's capacity for expressing and processing emotion was limited. I suppose we had that in common.
If I could see you with his eyes, with his memories, what would I see?
How would I know that?
What do you hope I would see? How do you wish he would remember you?
You mean if he had survived me rather than the other way around? I hope he would remember Jean-Luc Picard as someone who believed in him, who believed in his potential, celebrated his successes, counseled him when he fell short, helped him if he needed help, and if he didn't need it, got out of his way. Words to that effect.
He loved you.
So, how about that grief world, huh?
Yeah.
AIA.
Is it? Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is it just AI?
What are you talking about?
Pronounced like Aya.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about,
At the
Dan?
very
The world.
beginning.
It's called the grief world.
Are you talking about Aya?
Is it Aya?
Aya.
It's the planet that they zoomed in. I love when they do those space shots where they start in space or go the other direction.
It's got 8 suns.
And they zoom in from space and go through all the planets and stuff, and they go in and they go on the planet, and you're like, wow, they got it on the planet. And you're like, we're not done yet.
Yeah.
And they go in on the planet, and they go all the way down to a beach with some people on it, or a desert, or a house or something, whatever. And then they can...
There's
or
some
a
crazy
house.
Romulans down
And
there.
I can't tell if I like that more or when they start down there and come
zoom
back,
out.
zoom back upwards. It's more fun if they're in a city sometimes.
I like to zoom in because you're like, what am I going to find?
Yeah.
When they zoom out, it's just going to be like, it's going to get smaller.
Yeah, right. That's
Which
a
is
good
great
point.
the first time.
They got a lot of zoom in. on
After the
this.
first time, there's no more mystery. It's going to get smaller.
It's like playing Cosmic Pilot Wings or something. You know?
Yeah, unless you zoom out and it turns out there's a big space bat. It's going to like eat the
Space
whole
bat.
planet.
Space Bat.
That would be cool. Like you can reveal. I guess if you're revealing something, it's cool. That's for me. That's the key.
It's cool when they do that thing where they zoom out and it zooms out so much that when it zooms out, it ends up being a person's eyeball or something,
Yeah.
or something stupid like that.
Cliche.
Yeah, it is pretty cliche, but it's always kind of fun. It's like,
All right.
whoa. we're
So you notice
capable of anything.
four mothers. Four mothers.
Right.
It seems like it's all women. There's a
Yes.
lot of
You know who else is all women?
Right. The Kawat Malat.
the Kawat Malat.
So-
there is a mirror business there, as we suggested might be the case.
Right.
Yeah, which is nice to hear, because the concern was that it was just some, like you were expressing, which I think makes sense, is your concern was that it was just some cool shit to say before, you fight a motherfucker.
Yeah.
With Elnor and
Right.
If there's an actual connection, then it makes sense for her to reveal that presumably secret information,
And-
as she did in the last episode.
and if there's no connection, then I just can't see how there'd be no connection at this point.
There's
I mean,
got to be a connection.
There's gotta be connection, because they're Romulans.
It's interesting that
all
there's
women,
another
Romulans.
sort of matriarchal group
Yeah.
within Romulan society.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like we didn't know that, and
Pulling some strings.
we've never we're getting more Romulan culture than we've ever seen before. Like,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the one thing, on this planet, when they're all hanging around this thing that's all vibing in the ground, the music cues and the sound effects sounded sort of similar to the Guardian of Forever or like the cage flowers that are all like, there was that kind of Star Trek-y hum.
Yeah, well, it is like
cage flowers?
It's a similar kind of device like the Guardian of Forever. It's like this ancient weird technology that you just find, and it's like a funky artifact, and it's like something analogous to like some sort of fantasy magic kind of,
and makes weird
artifact.
business
It's
go
a
down.
crazy device. Yeah.
Wait, what was the cave?
The cage, the flowers, those blue flowers that are singing in the cage.
Oh,
If you go back and listen to this
Spock
episode,
all smiles at it all weirdly.
oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, he does. Okay, yeah,
But
I
there was
remember
that, there was
'cause he
that kind of
smiled,
vibe
right.
going on there, which was neat. Okay, so questions about this scene. One of them is, are they?
It's got Commodore.
Are they memories? It doesn't seem. It wouldn't make sense that they're memories.
Well-
Are they?
Which are memories? Because this is that it started off with what they were doing 14 years ago on the planet.
Well, I mean, when they access the thing called the what is it?
The
admonition.
Admonition.
Which is a badass name.
Well, it's confusing. With the timeline is confusing because the 8, the Romulan matriarch, the Zhat Vash, they're specifically Commodore O. She goes hundreds of. She says something like 100. I swear, I have to double check this because I'm pretty sure I did. She says like hundreds of centuries ago.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think so.
It's very ancient Romulan.
But that changes over the course of the episode. I think at one point, I think it's Girardi at some point says, I have it written down farther down, but Girardi says like thousands of centuries, and then it finally ends up with, I think it was Raffi was saying hundreds of thousands of
Or
centuries.
200,000 years or something.
I thought I could have
that
sworn
just be
she-
sort of colloquial, like it's just a really long.
What I heard, and I'll have to now. Of course, I'm always going to keep questioning myself. I thought I heard century each time. I heard hundreds
I
of
thought you were
centuries.
about to tell us about like an inside rumor you heard.
Yeah,
No, they did. They
not
always said
substantiated.
centuries. They always said centuries.
My old
or-
buddy Michael
or
Chamon.
hundreds of millions. Or
They
something.
said hundreds of centuries. Then later, O said hundreds of centuries. I think it was Aggie said thousands of centuries, and then I think it was Raffi who said hundreds of thousands.
But the
of
point
centuries.
being that it's old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's old.
But if it's old, the question I think a lot of people are having is, are these memories, which sort of doesn't make sense because there's a flash of data and a fox, and I mean there's just things that just sort of don't make sense as memories.
Yeah, that's true.
So then it's like, okay, is this not a thing that has memories, but that is just like trying to convey what's going on, or is it telling the future?
Right.
Or is it just bullshit? Like, what's the deal? I think it's a little bit unclear. Is it how their brains are interpreting? Like, they're being fed data, but like they're interpreting it in their own way? I don't know.
Well, yeah, because originally when O gave to Girardi the thing, and then the first time that we see it revealed to Girardi, is my assumption at the time was not that it was a memory of the past. My assumption at the time was it was a warning for the future, or maybe something mixed with the past. I don't know. I didn't really get an idea either way of which it was. But then when it was going down on the planet, and that's a good point you say, because there was data in there at the planet, it made it seem like it was just a straight up memory, because that's why the admonition was there.
But it seems like it is a warning.
Right.
Of the future.
It is a warning.
But it's something from the past.
Is it a warning
but it could
using
be-
the past as a prologue kind of
But
warning?
I mean, Commodore O showed Dr. Jabroni like some I'm sorry. That was lame.
No, that was I thought that was pretty awesome actually.
She showed her that stuff. Did she show her like the full janks that they got at the admonition?
it seems like it, and
how come
Except
she
no
didn't
data.
freak the fuck out?
well, and of course we'll
Right.
talk about it more in a second.
I was wondering about that too. Why Girardi didn't freak the fuck out?
Yeah.
And even if
She just stone cold.
and regardless if she did or didn't, why would O take that risk? So I
Right.
guess you can only assume that O kind of gave her a censored version
like
or something.
most of those like fucking Romulans, and they like kill themselves, and like one of them goes crazy, and then like only one of them's really okay. Like,
Yeah, one's pulling her hair out,
Like-
the aunt's pulling her hair
Yeah.
out, and then was the other's tearing at her
like
eyeballs.
if the Romulans can't take it, who is Dr. Aggie, man?
Right, exactly. So the O must have given some kind of censored
That's a
version
very
or
good
something.
point. In
So-
which there could be nefarious, or important factors going on there.
poisoned her mind.
Or left out some
or it's
information.
it's an altered version of what they saw. for Dr. Aggie.
Well, it is interesting, and one thing I'll note is that I think it was Michael Chabon or one of the other producers, somebody in an interview was saying that they really wanted to answer most of the questions in the 8th episode.
Well, there's lots of big explains.
Yeah, and the idea being that so many TV shows reveal all the answers to the questions at the end of the last episode of the season or whatever, but that really so much of the interesting story is how do people react to finding out that information. So obviously we haven't gotten every answer, and we don't know how the season is going to play out, but we really did get a lot of answers here. And this is, for example, it moves into the next scene where we find out Narissa is talking to Ramda, and we find out they were orphans and taken in by Ramda.
So Narissa is it's interesting here. This also gives her a little bit more credibility, because before she seemed just kind of like this boneheaded, shoot first, ask questions later kind of thing. But there's another side to it, is that she's really strong.
Yeah.
Like she's mentally powerful. Would Narek have been able to endure? He seems too angsty to have been able to.
I bet he wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah. So and actually, real quick, what was the admonition? Was there some green laser thing? I wasn't sure what that green laser thing was all about.
Which you mean where they were shooting?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not.
You mean in the imagery from the admonition?
The admonition in between them, there was this green laser box.
Yeah, there was
I don't know what was that the admonition, or was that?
No, I think it's all it's all the pictures. I think okay. So we should talk about this. I think this idea is a great idea. I don't think thus far they have really done it justice, and I think that might be the case because of Michael Chabon being a fiction writer, primarily writing literary, written book fiction. And it's an idea that would work brilliantly in a book because you can use language to evoke the horror and terror. I think it's very difficult to translate that to the visual medium of television, even with great production values and things like that.
Because you're just like, well, what? How bad could it be? Like, why? There's
and
people scratching themselves.
Think of Event Horizon.
Hitting each other with rocks.
Event Horizon is the type of thing that gets close to having it work, and even there, it doesn't work in terms of visions of hell. Of something so horrible you'd rather just be dead and claw your eyes out.
I was wondering what that actual green thing in between them was. There was a thing they were looking at.
The thing that was holding the memories.
Is that it was just holding?
I thought it was
memory.
yellow.
Was it yellow? I don't know.
You've confused me.
Well, maybe it was yellow. I don't know. But it was. They were all standing in a
circle. Check your tint setting, boys.
Depends on the TV.
They were standing in a circle around it, and it was just some laser box. It wasn't a box. I got the impression it was an outlined laser box.
You're right. It was some sort of, as Jesse said, sort of fantastical, magical, guardian of forever kind of business.
Okay, I guess I see what you guys are saying though. No, it's you can sort of intuit what its deal is.
It's like a magical item that
it's enchanted.
It's all off by itself. It's in some crazy business where there's a planet with like 8 suns around it.
It's an enchanted infinity box.
That like supposedly somebody actually put that octenary system together.
And there's a lot of box imagery, the Borg cubes, the Romulan Rubik's Cube business.
Yeah, that thing.
So, the octenary, it seems like they could have just put a beacon out, but I guess the octenary system, everyone who sees it will be kind of like, that's weird and fucked up.
If they see it, apparently no one's seeing this shit.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if there's any reasoning as to why they had to make this big 8-planet thing. But maybe, I don't know.
Even though I just said that, we've gotten a lot of the answers, I think that we don't have the answer to yet. We don't know exactly what the deal is with all that stuff. So I will be curious to see how that gets resolved.
So there was like 12 of them on the planet, 15 of them on the planet.
Oh, I didn't actually count. Yeah.
Is that all of the Zhat Vash? It can't be all of the Zhat.
I don't think
those were just initiates.
Recruits.
Recruits. Okay,
and only 2 survived the process. And of course, was she didn't seem to I don't think she partook at that time. Mm-hmm. I think O is telling them all this stuff, and then they do it because she's
probably been in that Jinx.
Yeah. I think she's already done it, and so she's like, I don't want to look at that. Be doing that again.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that leads back into where you were going, Patrick, where she was. What's her name? Rizzo was in the room with her aunt, and still, even though she's kind of mourning her, kind of wishing she was okay, she was still being like, really snarky about it. So it was Narek, and we reveal that her and Narek were
orphans, and we don't know
Orphans.
how.
And we still don't know. He said,
What happened with the brother?
taking in Narek and me after our parents died. They still have an out, which I think they're going to take,
Yeah.
which is that you don't know if they have the same parents.
Right.
I don't think-
exactly right.
I think
I don't think it's incest
because
yet.
there's all
I think
sorts
it's.
of
I think
kin
it's
in there, yeah.
even more incest than before.
It's
You're right.
extra
You're right.
incesty.
You're right that technically they could get it out, but I'm positive they're brother and sister.
Yeah, they might as well do it at this point. Right?
Yeah, you know, secret
probably already have.
doors,
Well,
secret, you know,
yeah,
hidden names,
literally,
secret
right.
doors,
You mean
second
for
doors.
our stuff for us to see?
I was saying they might as the writers might as well go with that. I hopefully,
Oh,
yeah.
right.
And you were like they probably already did meeting the characters, and I was like, yeah, that's funny. That was a good tie-in.
Okay, so then right before the opening credits, we get to see a brief bit on the cube, and these Romulan guards clearly not that interested in using disruptors to fight the Elnor elf dude, which is I really like the choreography and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you have to be like, yeah, okay, I'm not clear on why you all have guns. Why aren't you just
right.
like shooting lasers, just strafing the whole thing?
Yeah, they have to announce their position by throwing in some kind of space flashbang, and
Yeah.
then it's like we're gonna blind him first, and it's like why don't you? Yeah, right. Why don't you just space strafe like you were saying?
Or I don't know, anyway. But I don't normally like to nitpick stuff like that. It's just that it's starting to happen a lot.
Yeah.
In this particular case, but I kind of still think Elnor is cool. Seven comes in pretty badass. She reveals that she knows Hugh. Right, so we had a question
Yeah.
before whether we
Because she's all like,
presumed.
"Where's Hugh?"
Yeah, we presume there must be some knowledge between them, some relationship between them. But anyway, that goes into the opening credits. Boom, bam, boom.
Well, the aunt, she was saying that her aunt, because they were talking about the ship. She said here, she beat the Borg ship by the sheer force of her despair. Was that literal? Like, did she have some kind of mind freak out?
I think that's how it happened.
I think
You
that
think she just freaked out?
Yeah,
and they all,
she's crazy.
Yeah.
She went crazy. She didn't kill herself and blow her brains out or smash her face in with a fucking rock, but she still went fucking nuts.
She went nuts.
But
when
did she
she
do
saw
some
that
kind,
shit.
Did she do some kind of mind magic, or did she just go?
I don't think she did mind magic. What I don't know yet if this was on purpose or not. But I think what we can understand to have happened now is her ship got assimilated by that Borg cube. That Borg cube, once it assimilated her, it went into their fucking network, and all the Borg now knew that crazy, horrible shit, and so they're going fucking nuts. The main Borg can, they cut off the connection with that cube to abandon it because they're like, that cube's gone fucking crazy, and it's sending some crazy ideas over here.
Whoa!
So-
They junked it. She hacked it with her crazy brain.
And by the way, that would also, when the other Romulans on that Tal Shiar ship were assimilated, they would also be getting that information from her brain. So that her crazy is like transferring to like her fellow Romulans, to the rest of the Borg on that ship, maybe. But anyway, that's an
pretty
idea.
badass.
But it seems that some version of this is what happened,
Right.
possibly on purpose, probably not. Maybe it just happened to be that they got her. I don't know. Presumably we'll find out more.
Because you wonder if, like, is this whatever happened hundreds of centuries or thousands of centuries ago? Is this somehow connected to the origin of the Borg? That you wonder, like, who are these ancient people, and is it somehow connected to the Borg coming into an existence, or
I mean,
or that's a question you have. But then on the other hand, like, whatever this information is that's on this planet and it was in Ramda's brain, like, really messed up the Borg. Like,
I mean, that would.
so it could be something that it's something different that we don't even know what it is, and it's more terrible than the Borg even.
Well, it would make. It wouldn't be unreasonable for it to be the Borg at all, actually, because that kind of fits in because the Borg. I mean, we already have the Romulan tie-in, and now there's the Borg is here,
Yeah.
and that relates to the synthetic. And then just
or it's
and
like
an origin for the
something
Borg.
that
Everyone's always wondered, what are these fucking Borg?
And or it's something that the Borg didn't even know about their origin, and they're like, "Oh, that's fucked up." Like, whatever this is, this could be something that's like information that people didn't know, that they thought they knew the opposite, or
Because
we don't know what the hell.
jumping ahead real quickly is when Seven, when she got taken over by the Borg Queen, I guess we can assume it was.
Where she became the Borg
became
Queen.
She became the
Borg
Borg.
Queen.
She became the Borg
local queen.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that was cool.
and
she was able to be like, "No, I don't want to be."
well, she was like, Anna kind of still needs to do shit or whatever. So I don't know. We can talk about that later. If you want. But
So the other thing is that, and again, it comes up a little bit more in a bit, but we start getting hints that it's not just that the synths being created, it's, you know, the presumption has been the fear is that synths will like take over the universe or whatever. There seems to be a suggestion that actually what's happening is you make the synths and then somebody else comes and like pokes their head into your universe and is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, and that'll be interesting. So I don't know. We'll get some more clues to that in a little bit. But the next scene is, Rios freaking out when he sees Soji.
Right, I really wasn't expecting that at all. That was to have Rios tied into this story.
Do you think
like
it's too clever? Do you think it's too coincidental, or is it?
Well,
fine?
I was wondering about that. I was trying to think, like, is this a little too coincidental that he gets involved in the story and he's already was involved in the story somehow? Like, that's, you know.
I mean, how many of these?
I mean, that's how stories happen, but
but I mean, how many? I mean, there's already story that's happening though, so it's like, how many coincidences can there be?
Right.
How many synths are there then? You know, they're talking about there was a nest of them, so I don't know.
Well, and I guess we're gonna find out next week.
Yeah,
but
they all like French fries and peppermint ice cream.
To me, I think it was the first time we saw Rios sort of properly fucked up. You know, he looked kind of like he saw, well, literally like he saw a ghost, but he was really kind of put off.
Yeah, and you hear his perspective because everything's all like whispery and like he's all distant and just being like, "What's going on?" And like Picard's trying to talk to him and he's like, "Set the course." He's like, "Hey."
Yeah.
Picard's like, "Hey, set the course
He's
now,
like,
dude."
"I will set the course for DS12 right now."
He's like, "Hey, all right."
And Picard, of course, Rafi is all like, "Come on, what's the deal with this? You know, you're bringing some crazy people on board. The other chick was a murderer."
Because one pissant little neuron.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Picard really isn't being prudent. He seems to be so obsessed with the idea of having this noble mission that he's been willing to just sort of fucking, ignore the evidence, any evidence that might contradict it, confirmation bias style.
Yeah, so he tricked fucking Soji into not going home, basically. She's like, "You're going to take me home." And he's like, "You got this mission you got to do. Come on, it's really important." And it is, but it's still kind of like a dick move. And and the confirmation bias towards Girardi and all that stuff, so.
Although we do start to see Corona. We do start to see a change.
Space virus.
A bit of a change. Picard learns a lot in this episode. I know he's been learning and growing kind of throughout this whole season, especially the last episode. There was a lot of growth opportunity for him, but I think in this episode he starts to really turn the corner to be like, okay, we're involved in something here, and we've got to do this the right way. This is no longer sort of like an old man's fantasy.
Yeah, and the turn happened like last episode when he was like basically like, "I'm gonna do my shit.
Yes,
this is a mission, and once I do something, you'll find out I won't stop." And it turned something that was a desperate sort of last words are words. A desperate effort, I guess. It turned something that was sort of a desperate quest or whatever into like just like
Fester's quest.
Something that was Fester's quest, and turned it into 720 skateboarding.
And
Skater die.
I mean, even the Admiral is like, okay. Like, I see what you're saying, but like, just cool it, dude. Like,
yeah, I thought that was great, and he does that funny little clap, that funny like, I'm an old man, and I've succeeded in getting her to agree to my demands.
Yeah,
she was still pretty scary though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, she was. Yeah, I like that she used the same like terse, vulgar thing, but in this time you're like, oh yeah, awesome.
Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and she was a little misleading though, because she was basically going, Jean-Luc, you can have your shit. Like she kind of made it seem like she was
having fun.
She was sort of.
Oh, she was doing it on purpose.
Yeah, you think she's fucking with him a little? She has a naughty mouth.
She does have a naughty mouth.
At first, when I saw that,
nice hair.
Yeah, it's pretty good hair.
It's all bouncy.
At first, when I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, how'd they get to Earth so quickly?" And then I was like, after she disappeared, I was like, "Oh yeah."
That's his. Yeah.
Did you really think that?
It's the future, man.
Or is this like a podcast joke?
No, I know it's like in pro wrestling. I think
Save
they call
the
it
jokes for
they
the
call
end,
it they
Dan.
call it kayfabe. I think in pro wrestling where it's everything is real. No, like it wasn't like I was actively stressing over it, but part of my mind for a split second was just kind of, they back on Earth, and I didn't think about it. I was like, it just kind of popped into my head. I stopped thinking about it, and then they
into your head,
and
quirkled right in there.
It quirkled. It didn't ruin my enjoyment of the scene.
Got lots of hollow action in it.
You do have to get used to this sort of conceit they've done to sort of give Picard his own ready room type.
Oh, right.
You know.
Yeah.
The last episode was Picard's desperate act. It turned Picard's desperate act of a desperate man into a mission of a noble one. That's what I was trying to kind of go for.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It was like before it was desperation, now it's noble.
Now it's inspiration.
because he's something about it was just like people can tell me fuck you all they want and I'm going to say fuck you right back basically, you know?
Yeah.
And he finally accepted that, as before it was like I can't believe all these people are telling me to go fuck myself.
Do you think it was like because he saw like Riker and Troy and they were like, yeah, this is what you're doing, we know what you're doing, you're just going to say fuck you back, and they were like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, you know, you're right.
Yeah. And then and when he's a Soji, he's like, Soji, this is how I am. And she's like, oh. And then she started trusting him more after that. So
Well, and so we'll get to
because she didn't, and it was all pushed by because she didn't trust him, and he has to try to get her to trust him. So he was being really honest. So yeah, okay.
Then we, after the Clancy scene, Rafi starts her sort of interrogating the holograms.
Yeah, like there's all these holograms,
which is a fantastic. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know about you guys. I really enjoyed this whole.
It was fun.
subplot.
There's just so much
because there's a new one too.
The psychology,
Yeah.
the psychology of it. Like the only way you can get to this guy is by these holograms that he created and won't admit that he did on purpose. Basically,
Right,
and like it's his only way to communicate with this guy. He's so closed off from everyone, but he's so desperate to make a connection that he's made these holograms to like sort of be his
in this specific case with Rafi, is mimicking, not even mimicking, it is like on TNG or TOS or DS9 where you would see a character, Dax or Riker or Data or somebody, Geordi, talking to the computer and working through a problem by talking to the computer and asking it questions.
That's a good point.
And this is taking that to like the next level where it's like now she's talking to this guy's personality divided into 5 pieces, but it's the computer. So it's got access to computer data and stuff like that. So she's working through the problem by talking to a bunch of computers,
you get a few of their names too. I mean, I guess we already knew
Enoch.
that. We knew that Emmett's name, I think, was Emmett already.
Emmett, we knew.
But we
There's
know
Ian.
the Irish guy is Enoch. Is
and they refer to the
Enoch, yes.
The hospitality
and then
one
Ian
is
the Scottish.
The hospitality one is apparently should be referred to as Mr. Hospitality. That's his like actual name.
Oh, word. Okay, that's like the weird American accent. Like
Yeah.
So there's at least 2 Irish ones, right?
No, an Irish and a Scottish. And they made the
that's
engineer.
racist. I'm sorry.
Yes.
but
Good. We are all on a path.
The path.
We are all on a path, and we're taking steps.
Just
Dan has taken an important one
Thanks.
today to
Thanks.
recognize
Just stay
that.
the course.
Yes. But yes, Irish and Scottish and okay,
they
first of all,
they were speaking Gaelic to each other.
I knew
Okay, that was what you think. I was wondering if, or are you making a joke?
I'm not making a joke. That's what happened.
He's talking about Dinna Ken.
Oh no.
Well, Ken just means do you know? That's it.
Yeah, I figured that much out.
It comes from Gaelic, but
I say that at
but
work,
the-
and people look at me.
The Scottish guy
Oddly.
said something in Gaelic, and the Irish guy said, "Yeah, that sounds about right."
Okay, so that was okay. I know what you're talking about.
So it was predictable that they would have an engineer hologram. We hadn't seen it yet.
Oh.
It was predictable
Scottish.
that it was going to be Scottish because of Scotty. And Scotty was named Scotty because there is sort of a tradition, at least according to what I think was Gene Roddenberry's perception, that there's a tradition of Scotsmen working as ship's engineers, particularly in engine rooms.
Yeah.
And what was great about this is they didn't make him seem like a Scotty, Jim played by James Doohan type character. They made him just
Who's
look
Canadian.
he was just like a steamship Scottish guy.
Right, yeah.
Like straight up like a shoveling coal
He's
into a
mechanic.
boiler.
That guy's a mechanic. Like,
Which I thought was kind of cute and clever.
Totally.
That they did that.
So all the different holograms. I mean, it's kind of interesting that they all have these specialties, and it's just kind of wonder why do they have specialties? Is it because that there's so much knowledge in the universe that they have to compartmentalize?
Well, these are
them?
emergency holograms.
Yeah, but why
Yeah.
can't they just have one that knows everything?
Well, if you
know?
think about it in the actual appropriate usage
I mean, they need several of them
'Cause
for
you need a
physical.
crew,
they need a
yeah.
crew, but like for knowledge wise, though.
I agree with you. There seems to be no reason why you couldn't just have one hologram that has multiple copies and they can all do anything.
Right.
On the other hand, you could argue that that's lame. or
Yeah.
or you could argue that there's some positronic computer believable isolinear rods and chips.
Isolinear
This
rods.
guy's
Totally.
this guy's just so like self-involved
maybe
that
it just
he's
works
got to
better.
make 5 copies of himself.
That too.
That's how
Yeah.
he deals with his shit.
Well, they're always talking about positronic neurons firing and reforming themselves. So it could be that there's just so much fucking knowledge. It's more efficient to have different copies so their neurons can be formed differently or something. Well, they're holograms,
Yeah, I
but you
can
know
see
what I'm
that.
saying.
Because what was it like? Okay, one
Not
of
datas.
them mentioned like how he used to know how to make like some kind of
Some
tea.
Isrian tea or something?
That was the hospitality guy, and then like one of the other guys was
There's
like, I used to know
something
about
tea.
like Medusan masturbation techniques.
Yeah, right, yeah. Astrogogical, masturbagogical.
Yeah, I didn't understand what he was saying.
He did say Medusan, though.
I thought he said Medusan masturbation technique.
He didn't say masturbation.
I did not hear masturbation.
He didn't say
That's what I
I
heard.
desperately hope he said masturbation.
I have it written somewhere here. When I find it, I'll bring
Because then
it
we
up
would
later.
know that masturbation is canon in the Star Trek universe.
Whoa.
Oh!
Oh man,
That would be such a bummer.
So you're saying he said some other word that I misheard?
It was Astro something.
Some kind of astro something.
I think so.
Well, now I just
Astro.
feel like a fool.
Well, you can't get them all right all the time, Jesse.
I'm just a dirty-minded.
But yeah, Medusan masturbation techniques is
I didn't. I wasn't trying to bring such a broad
do you tug
brand
on
of
the-
humor to the podcast.
Do you tug on the snake hair, or like?
the snake hair, the snake juice.
Isn't that what Medusa has, like snake head, snake hair? And then you like tug on the snakes.
The alien
Tug on the snake,
Medusans.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
the
forgot
alien
about
Medusans
those,
that
yeah.
like, but it's like you can't look at them or you die or go crazy. Or
Yeah.
something. It's to say it's like it's an analogous.
Nagless Rex.
Okay, I can't talk anymore.
So wait. So okay. They said he knew and then it was interesting. You were saying one of them knew how to make the tea and he didn't. They knew that Jana was bad news.
Some of them knew her name, but
Some
not all
of
of
them
them.
but none of them knew why.
Like
it's
up
funny
to a
that they
certain
knew.
point, they didn't have that information.
Yeah, and they were so much like, well, yeah, of course,
Because he
of course,
deleted it.
of course, a person like that's gonna bring up fucked up memories. It's like, why? It's like, well, shit, I don't know. It will. So that's kind of cool. That fucking what was it? ENH Enoch. Oh, that's interesting. Enoch. ENH ENOCH.
Except he said H.
Emmett was. What was it? He was
Emmett's the tactical.
tactical.
guy.
I was wondering if there was some relation between their name and their.
He seems to be the one that gets
They
along with
try.
them the best.
Yeah. So yeah, they were all looking for none of them really knew about the planetary star system too. I love when Raffi kisses Enoch on the head. He immediately like puts his hands up
Yeah,
like
and he
Kevin
keeps
and
him there
Home
until
Alone.
the scene goes away.
Yeah, he does. He keeps him there the whole time. He's speechless.
He's like, oh.
It was so adorable. This pretty awesome.
So that was a really all those scenes were really great. But I think really the Picard having breakfast with Soji scene I think is one of the best.
Yeah.
Probably the best scene I've seen. This in terms of writing and what the scene does.
Look at those nice picnic tables.
Yeah, of the whole
ocean.
series. I mean, for me, it's a highlight in Star Trek. Just this brief interaction between them, because she obviously is figuring out like who the hell she is. Is she a person even? Her memories are fake, but obviously she's been around, so some of her memories aren't fake, and just trying to, and it's all symbolized by this idea that she doesn't know if she likes the egg, right?
Right.
She's like chilling there, like with that egg.
But she only doesn't know that she likes it because she doesn't know.
Well,
Because she knows that she's not
Precisely.
right.
So her
But before she knew that, she knew she liked eggs.
her
Maybe she didn't
issue
like
is an understandable issue. And first thing, as you noted, Dan, Picard, he made that turn last episode. So now he's in Picard mode to be diplomatic and understanding. And he gives this analogy of, he's like, I don't know how you feel. All I can do is try to imagine it, right? And that's the beginning of the political aspect of this episode, because he's making an analogy basically to, a white person speaking to a person of color, or a man talking to a woman, or an able-bodied person talking to somebody who is doesn't fit in the quote unquote able-bodied category of not being able to know
a tall
the
person
experience.
talking to a
less
small
tall person. That's an implicit analogy there is that of course, I don't know how you feel, but I do want to do my best to imagine it. Let's have this conversation and see if we can work through it.
And then she kind of disarms him a little bit at the end. Because going back to talking about she doesn't know what she enjoys anymore through the eggs, right? She's eating the egg. She doesn't know what she likes. But then at that scene, she takes a bite of those eggs and then looks at him and then tells Picard, well, Data loved you, and that disarms him. And that's sort of playing the relationship. She doesn't know if she likes simple things like eggs. There's certain superficial memories that she has that she doesn't know are real. But what she did know is that she knew that Data loves Picard, which means part of her loves Picard. So it's kind of interesting that it doesn't matter if these memories aren't full on sort of quote unquote really what happened. There are certain truths that you feel
because your memories are the key to what make you who you are, whether they're fake or real, which has been discussed in other sci-fi as well. But I thought it was done well here, and is so important at the end of that scene when she picks up those eggs. Even before what she says about Data, her act of picking up those eggs and eating them is her signaling an acceptance of her reality. And part of that is because Picard says you have a past. You have a story just waiting to be claimed, which is very similar to what he says later in the episode about the future isn't written. Yes, the past is written, but the future isn't. This is the same message here. A story waiting to be claimed is effectively saying you can take control of your story, which is, I think it's just sort of a very profound and interesting thing for him to say. The other thing I think also is, of course, just briefly talk about like Picard's description of Data, when she was asking about Data, was like making me all teary-eyed.
Oh yeah.
And then when he's talking about, when she asked him, well, what would Data say about you? I was like straight up crying because she's forcing him or giving him the opportunity, depending how you want to think about it. But either way, she's putting him in the position to have to really think about what he would have wanted Data to think about him, and critique his own actions to see if he was matching up to that self-description that he aspires to. And I think in that moment realizing, especially at the point where he says, I like to think I would have gotten out of his way when necessary, that's when he makes that decision to be like, you know what, I've been too controlling, I've been handling this the wrong way. And then of course later he gets out of her way and lets her do things her way.
And there's a whole sort of double target for these expressions, because of course they're talking about Data, but then of course Data is also presumably a part of her, and so it's what he says about Data he's saying about her.
Right.
So,
she has to access.
So that's kind of like a warning. It's like letting her know what's up.
She has to access that Data. No pun intended, but like what Picard does in describing the stuff that he describes, and maybe this is just an idea that maybe she's like, oh, okay, wait a minute, now I know I have these memories from Data's information.
Right. Well, and it's not just memory, and it is memories from Data, but it's also her. So Data is her.
Right.
So it's like, it's not like me talking about my brother or something. It's like,
so she knows. My point is that she knows all this. She just doesn't know that she knows it until, just like all this other stuff that she doesn't know that she knows until she knows it. Like
like when she
another kind of
when she ate those eggs and wasn't sure if she liked eggs or not, but then she realized just then that Data did love Picard, so like kind of like that. She was just kind of realizing that about the love. So
she eats the eggs, accepts who she is, accepts her connection to Data, pretty explicitly. Cool. Okay, one other question about this is Picard makes that comment, about how Data had difficulty sort of perceiving, processing and experiencing emotion. Not the humor part, the emotion, And then Picard says, I suppose we had that in common, and sort of looks wryly. And I thought it was a really fascinating comparison to make, because Picard does traditionally, like, have we ever seen him say, I love you to anybody? Or has it been implied that he would have, other than maybe his mother or something?
And it seems like he's so in touch with the human condition and the human spirit and everything that makes life what it is and makes life beautiful. But yeah, it's
he can't experience it.
But yeah, and so I was thinking that at the same time, I was like, I guess he isn't. Yeah, he's never really expressed a close connection, even though he's so closely connected with life in general. He can't get it onto.
He
a
can
personal
understand
connection.
it, but it's almost like his ability to understand it prevents him from participating in that life. So there's a natural distancing that goes beyond. When he was a captain, the distancing. He could say he's the captain, so he distances people. At the end of all good things, he realizes maybe he shouldn't do that, and he tries to get closer to his crew. And we see later that he remains closer to his crew, so he does make some improvements. But there is this distancing that is not just him being an authority figure; it is who he is. He is his personality. He distanced himself from his brother. He distanced himself from lots of other people throughout his career, including like when he distanced himself from that girl that he didn't sleep with before he fought the Nausicaans. Turned out that it was a good idea in that case, but I like that they made this comparison, and I don't know that they've ever made that comparison before to sort of signify and strengthen that relationship between Picard and Data and why they had an affinity for each other, and that Data looked to Picard as sort of a paragon of humanity to aspire to, while Picard maybe looked at Data for his childlike wisdom, something that maybe Picard felt that he didn't have access to, again, because of that emotional processing issue.
I can, it's true. I can, it's true.
I can, it is too, baby.
Does the hospitality guy, do you think that's an iPad he's holding or a Google Pixel C or whatever?
You mean in real life?
Yeah.
I
Looks
don't
like
know.
an iPad.
I don't know.
Isn't that what the name of the Google tablet was? Google Pixel C or something?
I think it was just a Pixel.
Or was it
I don't
just a
know.
Pixel?
Mine is called a Pixel, but anyway.
Why is the hospitality hologram so bad with personal space? What was that?
No,
What
he's
was that
such a
joke
great. He's
about?
a great close talker.
Yeah, I know.
love it.
I mean, it's
that's right. I was going to mention that. He's
Yeah.
it was like definitely like a close talker because it's all like
He's all
like everybody,
leaning in.
recoils.
He's
It's
like
like whoa.
leaning in.
But he wasn't even just in her space. If she didn't move back, he would be like in her face.
she fell on-
right.
she
like,
fell onto
she
the
had
bed.
to get out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally enjoyable. It's just curious. It's like that's a decision they made to make him like that. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
and I guess you could go different ways. You could say the basic humor is just in that idea that that probably people have experienced when they're on a cruise ship or in a hotel or something, and somebody's just like trying to be all chipper and right up in their fucking face and be like, "You're gonna have fun. Go to the pool.
Yeah,
Put the towels in this basket."
And it's totally not hospitable. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's like some sort of weird bitterness there. But you could also imply,
Weird bananas?
since this is basically, they're all aspects of Rios's personality in some sense. You could also argue that this is the part of his personality that is like really wants to be close to people, yeah, I don't know. That was a good little scene. Also, young Rios, when we see the picture of like young Rios,
Yeah,
he's
right.
all cute and cuddly.
He's adorable.
He's like super adorable.
Is that
Alonzo Vandermeer?
Vandermeer? Is that actor anything we'd ever seen before? I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't immediately recognize him.
No, yeah, not necessarily.
He looked all captain-y.
Totally like
did.
classic Star Trek-y old dude.
So when it went to his room, those books he had on there, The Stranger,
Albert Camus.
Death in the Afternoon, Case Book on Existentialism. At first, I thought it said Casey Books on Existentialism, like the author was named Casey Books.
My name's Casey Books.
Yes, but no.
Today we're going to learn all about existentialism.
So, no, but it's Case Book.
All you need to know is don't worry about it.
The concept of dread, fear and trembling / the sickness unto death.
That's that's some kind of philosophy,
Yeah, a bunch of it was philosophy.
like Kierkegaard or something.
The Rebel, which was by Camus. And then there was The Tragic Sense of Life, which is what he was reading at the beginning, which was like some philosopher. And then on the separate table on a book face up was Serac and Existentialism.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of that stuff going on.
I want to get that Serac book because you can get the other books. So like it's less interesting. I want to get the Serac book.
So
But that's a made up book.
yeah,
How are we going to get it?
I don't know. Someone will write it.
Do you think it's from the 22nd century or the 23rd?
If it was a real fan fiction hardcore motherfucker, we'd wait until the 22nd century or something before they actually wrote
Where
it.
they published it?
Yeah.
Or they'd write it now so it would seem oldish.
Yeah, so it's kind of like in what was it? The Cones of Dunshire.
Yeah.
That they actually, I hear they actually someone made that game.
I bet that's been
I bet
made.
they did, yeah.
I can't imagine
we should
it's
get it and we should play it.
We should totally play
I
it.
We should
totally
fuck
wanna
this
play
whole
it.
podcast business and switch over to Cones of Dunshire.
It'll
because-
just be audio of us playing Cones of Dungeons.
Yeah.
all the time.
just
That would be
just-
amazing.
Just
a brilliant idea.
People standing around silently considering their next move and then briefly arguing over the labyrinthian
You
rules.
can't do that.
No, you did that. I didn't do that.
So we could just record ourselves playing Magic. That would be another option.
That's easier to do.
It
You
is.
could evoke more imagery with magic, probably.
You
But
could.
yeah.
We all already have.
I
magic
cast
powers.
evoke imagery.
So the so there's that picture of what's her name?
Jana
who I guess
and Rios.
they're implying that there was maybe some kind of close. Well, no, there couldn't have been a close relationship because there wasn't enough time to be.
No,
a
there
close
wasn't enough time.
So how did he know about the
No.
peppermint thing just from that one?
Well, no, they
visit?
were eating dinner.
Yeah.
Just
They
she
were
just
having
had it during
dinner with the captain.
Okay.
Yeah, and the
okay.
XO,
Yeah, I
apparently.
guess you're right.
I think that's when the captain
that's
shot
the point.
them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like they were eating dinner, and the guy, and he
She
said
was
the
eating
other
French fries, and she
the
got
other
blasted.
android whose name was
Something flower, beautiful.
yeah,
flower.
beautiful flower, which in Greek it's the term calanthe. I don't know. It's and which
We got to find out more about that guy.
that's going to be interesting to see because it's
Yeah.
like a dude android apparently, and we still don't know
Right,
where
because we're
Data-
sort of we already know that there's 3 of this one type of fembot, and then
yeah,
we don't
and
know.
probably more. and then there's Data and B4 and
Right.
Lore. They haven't mentioned Lore, and they probably won't. But he's always floating
Yeah.
around out there.
he's always up to something.
The Maddox, Khan Noonien Singh. Did Maddox like rebuild? Did the way Maddox solve the problem is by like copying? Not Khan Noonien Singh. What am I talking about? Dr. Noonien Singh, Data's dad. If he like copied his brain into a robot and then had the robot build the robots.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's too much, man.
I know. I think that's a little silly.
Flower. What was that guy's name? Flower.
Beautiful flower.
I think it was just beautiful.
It was called
flower.
Beautiful Flower.
It was a nice, simple sort of name.
So Elnor and Seven on the cube, these are mostly brief scenes, but they were all.
They're
I thought,
being badass.
yeah, they're pretty cool. I really like the whole.
They're both sort of badass
I was
in
right
their own ways.
when I was talking originally about the RPG party. I was like, they got Elnor, which is a fighter, but then they have 7 of 9. I guess she's another kind of fighter, and they are because they're totally teaming up.
Right,
They've got
right.
different fight skills. And
different,
they
yeah.
They've got different abilities. He's got some ancient like martial arts.
They're both
skills,
able to
and
just kind of show up.
she's
and,
like a-
fuck everybody up.
She likes to use her
all by
blasters.
themselves.
She's like a techno fighter, and he's a warrior fighter.
7 of 9 just kind of showed up at the Borg cube, and that was being guarded by a bunch of Romulans, and she just kind of went in there, and she was like, "What's going on here? Where's Hugh?"
Yeah, right. Yeah, she just did stroll in there. Yeah.
What the fuck, man? What the hell?
And so, what was that?
oh, it's you.
So there was that whole, she was good. She wanted to fight them off by basically assimilating all those Borg.
No, so what she was saying is what ended up happening, which was
She was going to make a micro assimilation.
yeah, and that's what ended up happening. Her hand was forced, and she delayed in her decision because basically the only real option they had before them was for her to connect into the network and reactivate everyone's business so that she could, use them to help fight the Romulans and take over the Borg ship. But she was reluctant to do so for 2 reasons. One, because it's that classic conundrum of do you enslave a people to free them? Question. Even if you think that can be a temporary enslavement, it's just like the concept of do you take over somebody's freedom? Do you control? Like if somebody was able to come and turn a switch on and use our bodies to now fight something, even if it's for our benefit, there's a philosophical and moral conundrum there on its face. And then added to that was her concern, which seemed quite legitimate, that once she took that power, whether or not she would in fact have the strength to be able to relinquish that power, which is a great example and a very Star Trek example of somebody considering those important moral questions before making the decision.
Because you did mention maybe I won't want to.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, though, is that Picard didn't do that when he had the opportunity in TNG to genocide all those Borgs with that computer virus, remember? So he didn't do it then. Now, that was certain death, but it's still along the same principle of you're going to basically enslave a group of people. And it's not even you can just make them back to normal and it's fine, because some of them are very possibly going to die. And so it's not just enslavement for the principle; it's a practical issue of enslavement for death. And so how does that? And I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, or it does make sense. 7 of 9 is a different person than Picard. The scenario is a little different, but still, it's the idea of back in the TNG episode, I can't remember what it's called, but where they had this virus and they were like, we can
that's
put
the
the
one with
virus.
Q.
Yeah, we can put the virus in the cube and it'll spread and kill all the Borg and stuff. And Picard was like,
and
no.
there was a decision.
No,
not to
but-
do it.
Then Picard was just like, no, we can't do that because it's genocide. We'll kill all the Borg, even though we hate them. We can't just put a virus and kill them all.
But you're forgetting a key component there. Picard was in favor of the plan until he was convinced otherwise, because they forced him, Geordi basically forced him to talk to Hugh. And once he talked to Hugh, and we're going to see there's a mirror image of that plot point in this episode. Once Picard talked to Hugh, he could no longer make the decision to use Hugh as the vector, even for destroying this enemy that he hated so much.
So, I mean, whether I remembered that part or not, though, I mean, it doesn't really change anything.
No, but it's the exact same thing had happened, which is Picard was making a practical decision, and in fact, in that case, he was sort of already had made the decision, had to be convinced otherwise. But before taking the action, he, with the help of his friends, examined the moral and philosophical questions and decided to change his mind. And that's exactly what's happened here, although it's a little bit different because Seven of Nine never, in fact, she hadn't had enough time to make a decision one way or the other. It was basically, they have a short amount of time. The Romulans right now are literally murdering all the Borg, right? And so she was making the decision, do I save them from getting murdered by taking them over, or not? And she opted for that once she started seeing the life signs go out.
And that's why I said I don't think they're necessarily contradictory, because it's different scenario, different people. But in the end, if you had let's say you had the same amount of time to think about it, like you had a million years to think about it or whatever.
I just don't think they're very comparable, because she's in either case she's trying to save Borg. Picard was going to kill the Borg and potentially save humans. So it's she's trying to save the people who are being enslaved, whereas Picard wanted to enslave and kill the people who were going to enslave his people.
I think that's a rabbit hole though you can go down. But
it's a philosophical question, and it was cool that they had that in there. They didn't. They could have just had this be a 2-minute shorter episode, and Jerry Ryan just runs right in, hooks up her Borg Queen stuff, and starts wreaking havoc.
And I definitely was not saying it's not a good philosophical question. That's why I was just like, it's kind of the other philosophical question is that part to me. But I do think it's good that I liked it, and there's nothing that says that everyone has to do the same fucking thing and all the scenarios have to. It's not like it's not black and white all the time. But
so the mirror image of what Picard did with Hugh happens in this case with between Jurati and Soji. Because Jurati, of course, has been sent to kill Maddox, and I think we can suss out by now that the implication is she was also supposed to kill Soji. And one of the reasons why she was doing everything she could to avoid Soji, she didn't want to go on the Borg cube. She wanted to go home once Soji and Picard left. Right. She wanted to avoid meeting this person because she knew what would happen. The same thing that happened to Picard with Hugh. Once she met Soji, she knew that there was no way that she could go through with trying to kill her, even if she was already shady about it, and before meeting her, that was the
and
clincher.
Soji was all like, "Well, I'm not gonna let you do that."
Yeah,
she's like,
right?
"Yeah,
That was
right."
There was a part of it. I mean, obviously, objectification comes in. That idea can come up a lot because we were talking about synthetic versus human life. And Jurati was being... I'm going to try to stop calling her Aggie, because now I'm starting to piss myself off. It's like, you don't know...
Dr. Aggie.
You don't know Aggie.
You don't know her. You're not on a first-name basis. Right. You guys didn't go to, grad school together.
Yeah, we didn't. We aren't, I didn't know her in high school as she was my teacher, and then afterwards we started dating or something.
I know, right? That'd be awesome.
But yeah, so she's pretty much objectifying Soji. On the one hand, she loves her and is so impressed by her and just thinks she's just wonderful. But even herself, she goes, "You're a technological masterpiece and a work of art." Now, that's a compliment, but...
It's like talking to a supermodel in the 80s.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's good. It's an interesting point.
It's what you're saying. It's objectifying.
But here's the difference, though. Is
somehow part of this project, in some way, at least she knew about something. Like, she never saw the finished product, and now she's seen the finished product, and she's like, "Holy shit, this is wild!" Like, you get to eat food when you're hungry, and
well, yeah, but
go to the bathroom.
Back to the supermodel in the 80s. Now, of course, we could go down the line of how much control did they really have, but there was still some agency. There was still at least a little bit of agency to the supermodel, presumably.
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically.
As opposed to, being completely constructed.
Yeah, so Right. So there's no there's the way it's to me the way she describes her as a technical masterpiece and a work of art. It's almost kind of like it's almost like it's taking all the agency away from Soji. Now I
agree.
And so it's kind of like awesome. I'm a badass motherfucker, but as she was talking about earlier, how she didn't know if the eggs were real. It kind of goes back to the idea of it's like, what do I have to do with any of this? Yeah, and I guess once she met her, it was all good and stuff. But I mean, what she wouldn't. Now she saw her moles, and now she doesn't want to kill her anymore. It's like it's kind of like it's kind of like
kind of a funny bit where like, oh, I got moles and a bent toe,
and it's like, well, you're so beautiful, and now that because if you look like a pile of shit, I would have totally fucked you up, like
yeah, right.
She's like some clanky ass, or some Tin Man looking thing, all silver faced.
I can't do anything.
Please kill me.
Yeah, right.
I agree. The Jurati interaction, I think, was meant to be awkward because Jurati is awkward. Jurati does have this obsession with the science that she's interested in, and I don't think she was ever lying at any point or even exaggerating when talking about before about the possibility of meeting this creature, this creation, this person that's totally synthetic. That's her life's work. No matter what O showed her, can't override that particular part of the whole thing. And then, of course, running concurrently with this scene is, this is intercutting in between Rafi returning. Remember, Rios helped Rafi out by bringing her coffee and listening to her personal story and stuff like that. Now, Rafi is coming and returning the favor, making him coffee and sort of pulling the rest of the information she needs out. Now that
there was the coffee thing. Yeah, that's right.
And she got all the information. She didn't have the final pieces to the puzzle, but she had a lot of the pieces from the hologram interrogation scene. So it was, and again, this whole series has been sort of trickling information out, and then it like sort of coalesces at a certain point.
Yeah,
These lots of little mysteries, mini mysteries,
and it's almost like Rafi and Rios are the only ones who are really in it together. They're not in it for some great victory. They're just trying to get by, basically. But everyone else is sort of has their own agenda. Everyone else is kind of doing their thing, and they're like the ones that are like, man, this shit we're dealing with, right? So, which is kind of interesting. Did she point at the record player and go, "Is that I like your Walkman or whatever? Is that a Walkman?" Like
I thought I heard Walkman.
Yeah,
she said Walkman, and I was wondering if
was that his Walkman.
Yeah, I was wondering if she was actually pointing to one or if she meant the record player.
I think she meant the record player.
Yeah, the replicated record player, where if there was any
like she just called it a Walkman because she didn't know the actual name.
Yeah, she didn't know what it was.
That's what we call it in the future because our version of the past is our perspective of the past is.
It's like
different.
how we
So
call these things telephones.
Right.
Yeah. They don't
They don't
tell me nothing.
Yeah.
Telephonic communication. Phonic means sounds.
I like the idea of a replicated record player because there's nothing analog about that. But I know. But I get it. It's the aesthetic, right?
It becomes analog.
Yeah. Right.
He had to listen to Billie Holiday somehow.
Or Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish. They don't have Billie Eilish.
You can get Billie Eilish on record.
No, it had in the.
I guarantee
it hadn't come out yet in the year 2400.
You can get everything.
Billie Eilish is. You mean Billie Eilish is like future music
that came back to now?
Came back to now.
Yeah, that hasn't.
I would believe that.
Yeah.
I would actually believe that.
But it doesn't exist in 2400 yet.
No, it's just.
I could see that happening.
All right, so I have this part titled "Narissa Explains It All."
Hell yeah!
Going off of Jesse's joke from a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
So she is, on the Borg cube, and she's a very good shot with a disruptor. She's just going around just fucking blasting the fuck out of people. And she's clearly, she's stressed out, obviously, because some shit's going a little skewy. But on the other hand, she's literally, she's in control going around, and she's got her little dude following her around.
Yeah. They're Centurion. She called him a Centurion.
The guy gets iced.
But he before they get iced, when she's all fucked up, she's talking about like, should we like gas them, electrocute them? The dude's like, we just like open the doors and shit, and she's like, oh, that's excellent.
Nice. Yeah.
He even gives her a look like it's a little like, okay, all right, like chill out.
It's so treacherous. I don't know, like
it is really. Yeah.
But we get that. We get these sort of double double whammy of iconic scenes where first, bam, Seven becomes the local Borg queen and zap, we are Borg. And that's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then Narissa's like, all right, fucking open them fucking doors. And then that iconic, insane shot of just like thousands of bodies getting like whipped out into space.
They're like spiders blowing away or something.
Now, here's the thing though, right? For the future, right? First of all, because as you noted, Narissa, was attacked by Borg people. So there's still Borg on the ship and XBs or whatever. So they didn't get rid of all of them, right?
Yeah, I was wondering where those Borg came from.
The other thing is we've seen in First Contact, and I think in a couple other spots, we have seen that Borg, like, I don't think being out in space is maybe perfect for them, but
Borg's in space. It's not perfect for them. It's not optimal.
But I think they could survive. I mean, they're fucking Borg, right? At least I think there's the outside possibility that like not every one of those motherfuckers is dead.
There's a lot of mechanical stuff going on that would be fine in vacuum. You would just imagine that's how.
Yeah, you'd think maybe
unless you subscribe to the Total Recall version of science, where their eyeballs bug out of their face.
But they got anti-bug.
There's nothing about science.
Anti-bug-eyed technology, perhaps.
Yeah, because
force fields.
Yeah, 7 and 9 had the black eyeball covers when she got taken over by Queen Borg, or when she became Queen Borg. Suddenly her eyes became all black. So that must be an old like eyeball implant that they couldn't take out or something.
Implant.
And that keeps her eyeballs safe in space.
But awesome. I mean, I thought it was really not only just a great idea, but exceedingly well executed from a production value. It was horrifying to watch, especially because I thought they did something clever, which is they used a sort of at least my impression was that they used a musical sound effect to create the implication of screaming. Right? Because it is space, and even though, they have sound in space in Star Trek to a certain degree, like hearing people scream is kind of weird. So it wasn't like an it was more like a it was a weird, harsh.
These guys
sound.
are like they're Borg, so they have a funny scream.
Yeah.
Like a sheep. It was a very, very weird and uncomfortable scene.
Yeah, which is great, gives you sympathy.
You're just kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Oh, that's what's going on.
This show we're learning so much about the Romulans, and we're getting sympathy for the fucking Borg.
Yeah.
And by the end of this episode, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ! Oh my God, that's fucked up.
Well, because whatever this thing is, that this great menace that's coming, there's a very good chance that this doesn't have anything to do with the Borg, because it seems like it's so much more terrible than whatever the Borg are doing. The Borg are just like this unstoppable force that'll fuck you up.
Yeah, they're like bugs.
Like they're not. It's
zombies.
It's just sort of nature.
Zombie bugs.
It's just nature, and then but mixed with like mechanical mayhem. But like whatever this is it seems like if it's going to make a bunch of Romulans freak out, then it's got to be more than the Borg.
Yeah, so I'm really interested to
unless there was some Borg had something to do with the admonition somehow.
Yeah, unless there's just a more complicated. There could easily be something even more complicated.
There's a hexagon, a Borg hexagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called like the smorgasbord.
It'd be a hexahedron.
Hexahedron, you're right.
Like a totally different group. Those are the northern Borgs. The northern Borgs have the hexagons, and they're really good at soccer.
So it's like bye Borg. They all went out the window.
They play with like stop sign shaped balls.
Stop sign shaped balls.
You've got stop sign shaped balls ever since you got in that accident.
I wish.
It's crazy. That balls accident. So much for the plan, though, to save most of the Borg by taking over him. Now, the point of that scene was, I guess, some of the Borg did survive somehow. Just the majority of them died, but it also showed that 7 of 9 still has a connection to the Borg thing, and that it's like being in the mob or whatever. Everything I know about the mob from movies,
or riding a bike.
What?
Or riding a bike.
Riding a bike is you never forget how to be a Borg.
It's muscle memory.
It's spine memory.
Sort of. Spinal memory.
You just spinal memory. You just
at least if you have
you just never leave. You never get to get away from the Borg. Basically,
it's like when you're a Marine. It's like once you're a Marine, you're always
check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is also, I don't know if they'll do this. I'd be perfectly happy if they're just like, okay, those Borg were dead and Narissa's evil and terrible, etc.
Right, or if they spread out those.
But on the other hand, I would not be surprised if they are able to recover some of them, or that's possible because they are Borg, so maybe they're not quite as dead. Or
is Narissa dead?
No, so that's the other question, right?
Because it's not clear.
So she got swarmed upon like bugs, or like any kind of zombie shit you see, like zombies.
Then there's like that funny.
They did that scene where she's on the ground on her
green kind of stuff.
So
happening.
she's on her back, and the Borg all swarm around her. She's being like taken over by a swarm. It's so freaky, the idea of being one thing and a swarm of things just overtaking you. Like when you watch videos
into something.
like
So
when you watch wasps getting taken over by ants or whatever.
About people who live in New England.
Yeah, talking about people in New England getting
white Anglo-Saxon.
There's plenty of wasps
Protestant
around here, guys.
But so here's the thing, right? There's a glimmer of light at the end. It could be that she beamed away.
I mean, she may have just been assimilated.
Or she may have been assimilated. And by the way, at the very beginning of the episode, the opening of the episode, she tells her aunt, she's like, I would have made a better Borg than you.
Yeah.
So she might be about to find out. Or they could have done a thing where they started assimilating her and injecting some nanites, and then she beamed away, but now she's going to be dealing with like being on the Romulan ship.
Or she's got the horrible memory shit in her head, too.
And that shit goes freaky. Or maybe they weren't even assimilating her because they were XBs and they were just like not about assimilating. They were just trying to grab her.
That's what I was wondering.
Her,
So I think that we have yet to find out. However, she did say she would make a great Borg.
But the sexy Romulan dude is totally following them through that other weird Borg wormhole business.
Yeah, it's some cloaking. But I mean, I guess one reason to think that they weren't Borg trying to assimilate her is because they sneakily they fuck up that guy.
They just fuck him up.
That Centurion guy, they cut all sneaky like, and she doesn't even know.
Yeah, right.
So
she's
it's like
just talking like blah blah blah.
So would the Borg be sneaky like that, or would the Borg just be so casual that it would seem sneaky?
You see,
or were they?
the Borg aren't sneaky. They're just so casual.
But they're also being controlled by Seven.
And it's
right.
So either they're XBs and just being sneaky on their own.
They're all of one mind.
They could have gotten used to being sneaky because they've been living on this fucking cube with Romulans and they just don't like dealing with them because the Romulans are assholes to them. So they're like become good at being sneaky. I don't know.
I don't know. I was wondering if it's that it's just so casual that it's sneaky, or if they're active, smooth operators that know how to assassinate motherfuckers. You know, I don't know.
I mean, they're all of one mind and they're being controlled by Seven, of course, and so she was doing that.
Yeah, she could
unless those are like the group that like are disconnected enough that somehow they're not getting reactivated
because they didn't have a bunch of stuff.
Maybe they didn't. Like, maybe they've been like freed from that. It's hard. It's a little hard to tell.
Right.
And I think they leave it purposely loose. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick things about Rios. He tells his story about what happened with his captain and them meeting the synths.
Alonzo Vandermeer.
Alonzo Vandermeer
and shooting
and the beautiful
synths.
flower.
So Janna. Janna in Roman mythology was the wife of Janus, right? And it means the
god of comings and goings.
The gift of God is what Janna means in a lot of different languages. In Latin, it means the moon, which you think of something orbiting around somebody. And they referred to beautiful flower as the mentor. And like I said earlier, it's Calanthe is Greek for beautiful flower and is also a type of orchid. Right, and there was a lot of talk of orchid and stuff, so that's sort of in the whole theme.
Nepenthe is based off of a flower idea as well.
But yeah. But the other thing is Rios. He basically he doesn't say it outright, but what he's basically saying is in the end I just followed orders. Right? He's like my commander followed orders and shot these two synths. I gave him a hard time. He blew his fucking brains out. I was so freaked out by that. I didn't want everyone else to die, so I followed orders. Right? It was all about following orders. Jurati was also following orders, even though she's not a Starfleet officer. She was commanded by Commodore O of all people, head of Starfleet security, to do this. There's a lot of people following bad orders, and I think that becomes relevant a little bit later when Picard gives his little speech about the future. We'll get to that in a second because I have those quotes written out.
Right. Well, as far as following orders, Picard told Jurati to turn herself in for murder. Is it really murder if you're following like the orders of the head of security of Starfleet? Who
brainwashed you?
Yeah, who brainwashed you? Right. Who put you in a mind prison, psychic block or whatever. That was weird. I thought that was a little weird. It's like she put me in a psychic block so I couldn't tell people. I mean, you could also just say that she felt so guilty that she didn't tell anyone. I didn't get that part.
Yeah, or that she recognized the importance of the
psychic block
the situation.
But like to say that it was, but to say I believe that she poisoned her brain or whatever. But to say that she didn't tell anyone because of a psychic block, I mean, it's kind of like it seems like
I think they were just adding.
The blame a
little bit.
They
were adding adding something in there. I agree with you.
Dr. Jabroni.
And he's Seifu as a piper and Afu af the Fang.
Is that what he said in Gaelic or something?
That's when at the end of the scene where
There's not even a language.
Yeah, that's what it's like right that. And the other ones are like, yep, you're right. And then Rafi's like, oh man, it's kind of weird when they all put their hands to their head at the same time. It was cool, but like it was kind of like.
I like that.
It was kind
cute.
of it was cute. Yeah,
it was campy. I mean, Star Trek
Yeah.
should be campy, and it's good when they can add it in a clever, cute little way like that, and it doesn't become like a whole thing.
It's true, but I didn't ken why.
I liked when Soji, they're sitting there eating the ice cream. First of all, I know it makes sense in terms of the plot, but the immediate thing when Rios was all like, here's some French fries and peppermint ice cream, and she was like, I immediately in my mind I was like, does he just think all androids are the same? He just thinks they're all the fucking same? Like, what the fuck kind of racist shit is that?
Oh, they really love French fries?
Yeah, I know you like this. I know you like this freaky weird shit.
It's like you meet someone for the first time and they're eating corn, and from then on you think they're obsessed with corn.
Yeah, I actually used to get my son to cry.
you like to eat junk
He used to
food
cry a
all the
lot because he liked corn, but I don't know. I can't even remember how it started, but I kept saying like,
done.
"Oh, you love corn. Corn's your favorite thing," and he would just start crying.
Oh my god.
Kids are weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So that thing with the Rios thing, it was of course. So Soji hacks the ship. I really like when she's like, "Do you even have a family?" And
Yeah,
Rios
I
is
know.
like, "I do not."
Yeah, that's fucked up.
That's right.
That was fucked up, man.
It was really fucked up.
You even have a family? It's like, geez, a lot
Don't
of
you
people
know this guy has issues? Like, come on.
and it's like it's such an obnoxious thing to say. I mean, you're definitely saying that with malice because the implication is that people have families, you know. But I mean, yeah, I guess that was the point, though.
Sochi
so I won't,
just has this hypothetical family of a bunch of other synths. That
Yeah.
just look like her.
She should be asking herself that question.
Exactly.
She got no family. It's all fake, but they're hers.
And speaking of family, we can finally get a resolution to the Commodore O thing. At least from Rafi's perspective, it's not clear if we know this for 100% sure. But
Because she thought Jurati was a Romulan spy, and she made an assumption about that. But yes, go ahead.
but yeah, the whole half Vulcan, half Romulan, which explains why she could be part of the Zatvash, and also why she's into the mind meld
she can
action.
mind meld.
Because it
But
gets
she could do
around
like
that.
she could do a sneaky mind meld.
Well,
Romulan style through the secret back door.
Romulans
always go in the back door, if you know what I mean.
Whoa,
Of the brain.
ram you
Not
in
of the butt.
Ram you in. Well, Romulans do something that's like a cousin.
Sorry, I just got it.
Yeah.
I just got. I mean, I got the
Ram in.
coronavirus.
Yeah.
I just got the coronavirus.
Oh, good. Now I can get it over with.
Yes.
Virus.
Romulan, yeah, the Romulan have something that's basically a cousin of the mind meld, except they do it with themselves. They play with themselves when they do that because they have that room that they meditate.
they wander around in.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like
Romulans are just self-centered Vulcans.
yeah. So they all have that power, but yeah, I guess
And like
they are self-centered
more,
Vulcans.
more sneaky and secretive.
No, you know
it's not logical to be secretive according to the Vulcan.
who's sneaky and secretive is Rios with his little dead man switch or whatever you call it.
Oh, yeah, he sang that song about
lullaby shuts
about
down his ship.
Arose. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Apparently, that is a real lullaby from the actor who.
Word.
Did he just come up with it? He was just like, we should do this.
No, I think is what his grandma used to. I read that in some interview. That
Yeah,
grandma-
well, yeah. Sorry, what I meant was
Sang
like they were like, "What should the thing be?" And he was probably like, "I think we should do this because I have a connection to that or something."
I really thought it was cute when Picard tried to operate the ship, and
He's like, I don't know how to work this.
he didn't know how to work it. But what was especially awesome about it was the TNG music starts
that's
up,
what I was-
but then it hangs on the penultimate note, and it just keeps going and going. And then when he can't do it, it just goes like it's like a musical cock block where it like gets you like almost to the end, but then it just doesn't give it to you.
All the little quotes where they quote TNG music or like Voyager music. It's really like nicely done.
Or the TOS Romulan music, which is what they play like that.
I'm not
when
catching
they're
that
at the Borg cube and stuff, and actually whenever Narek, even when Soji's talking about Narek, you get little hints of like some old school like Balance of Terror Romulan music.
At the end, when
Alexander Courage.
when Narek appeared from cloaking, that they played some like TOS, and actually the last episode. When they were on Nepenthe, right before Nepenthe, Pente is a game. Right before,
I love that game.
is it like Go? Is that the same thing?
No,
It's different.
And
Different.
It looks the same.
It looks
It's good.
similar. I think the
Pente's all
idea is
about
similar.
5, and Go is all about other things.
I thought Go was-
Go was about some other stuff.
I thought Go
altogether.
was just about the same idea.
I think Go is somehow more complicated and
Yeah.
like requires
Just
more
'cause the
genius.
board's
somehow.
bigger.
It looks like it's simple, but it's actually more.
Oh
But
no,
Mensch-
I have no doubt that it's complicated as fuck. It's probably got more strategy than chess or something.
Mensch
That's the
Ergenicht.
idea, supposedly. Yeah.
So, last episode when they were beaming away, when Picard and Soji were beaming away from
Previously.
Previously.
Star Trek Picard.
Star Trek,
Picard.
find the halfling, I can't do it. Find. They has that voice where it sounds like someone's coming from the void. They're like, come. That's neither here nor there. When they were
What's happening?
when they were beaming away from the planet with Riker and Troy and Kestra, they played kind of a weird mix of TOS and TNG. I think like
Oh, okay.
if you listen to that part again, it was like that was my I remember a note I took about that was that it was kind of a weird little. It was like a subtle blend, but they're in your face, but also kind of subtle at the same time. There's something because it's almost like, hey, yeah, you're doing it.
Okay,
I think
yeah,
you do
because I'm not catching all of them. I'm catching some of them. That shows
Right.
how like subtle it is. I have to
Right.
Yeah, like,
I mean, the
it's-
whole opening theme is the music that Picard's son was playing in the Inner Light. It's a variation on, and
Nuh-uh.
yeah, and people keep getting this wrong. It's not exactly the
Whoa.
music. Like there's the
is
Picard
that
Inner Light
the
theme.
flute music.
Yeah, but there's the Picard Inner Light music.
Right.
But then there's in his life when his son is getting older and his son's all getting into like
Inner light in his life.
his son, there's a scene where they hear him. He and his wife are talking. They're much older, and they hear his son playing the music, and his wife is saying, like, I think he's decided what he wants to do, and he's playing a tune there that's basically the Picard theme has been a variation that's built upon that tune. It's pretty cool. It's worth listening to. There's differences, but it's the core, like the core few notes in the melody.
I'm not qualified to be on this podcast.
You're totally. You're the most qualified.
I didn't fucking know that
with
shit.
your music business.
Yeah, I'm not
Slinging music.
I'm not delivering any sort of musical knowledge to this podcast. It's like, oh yeah, they played some Voyager. They played some TNG. I thought it sounded like TNG.
That just shows how much you do know, Jesse. That you feel that you should know more.
Okay, before we leave the Borg cube
Map of Borg transwarp conduit network 9 hours from
yeah.
nearest node.
What's up with
That's
this
where they
Borg
were because
transwarp
this
network?
came
It's badass.
we parted from the part where you were talking about the how the lullaby to take control of the ship,
Yeah.
and she found the map of the Borg transwarp conduit network, and they were 9 hours from the nearest node. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where we left off.
But then at the Borg cube,
9 hours
after
from the
everything goes
nearest
down on the
node.
Borg cube, Seven disconnects herself from being the local Borg queen, and I don't know why I really liked when Elnor was all like, "Are you going to assimilate me now?
You gonna get me too?
That was
Are you
great,
going to
yeah.
assimilate me now?"
Am I gonna got
Am
too?
I gonna have to go back?
And then he
to
all
New
smiles
Zealand?
at her. She's all like, oh, Annika has more work to do.
Yeah.
He all coy. He smiles at her like, "You gonna get me too?"
And then okay, now I think
because maybe he wasn't sure if he's like, maybe this is all right.
My ass can't wait, so assimilate.
assimilate.
Because my ass can't wait.
Assimilate. I'm part of the
Why- how does that explain? How does that explain
Gawat
assimilate?
Malat.
Because-
Green laser plugs.
Because-
faster than a lizard drinking.
What?
What?
Green laser plugs in the back of 7 of 9. That's how
Yeah.
it explains it.
Oh yeah.
That explains it.
Yeah, laser plugs. So I think the next scene is again one of the more important scenes of the show is Picard talking to Rios when they're they're heading to the transwarp conduit and everyone
Like,
they're
is that
sort
when
of
he
alone.
says how he sort of knew his captain?
yeah
because he knew like his captain's captain.
yeah he knew his captain's captain. He was the first officer for his colleague.
Like that, whoever that, I couldn't understand what he said. Marta's somebody.
Yeah.
'Cause
Marta Batanides?
I'm such a wasp that I
wasp.
didn't understand.
So,
what he was
White
saying.
Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Quick question. It sounds to me, right, or it spells to me, if you read it like I'm going to read it, it's like Marta Batanides. But obviously he doesn't say it like that. Is it okay for me to try to say it like, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm really not.
No, it's
because it's bad.
As long as you're not trying to be an asshole. It's
Okay.
okay.
So- because he says it's like Marta.
Okay, now you might be stretching it with the Marta part. I thought we were
I keep trying to
focusing on the
roll.
last
I keep
name.
trying to roll my R. Marta.
Porfirio Diaz.
Marta Porfirio Diaz.
Batanides.
Arrivederci.
Batanides.
Sayonara.
Because I was imitating a friend who had a Spanish accent. Actually, it was a Salvadorian accent, not Spanish.
Slanche.
Once, and someone pointed out to me that was racist, and at first I was like, no, it's not. But then I was thinking, like, I guess it might have been. It's
in a pinch, it's just assume it's racist.
Yeah.
If somebody says it is, it probably is.
Yeah.
Like good chance. That's the basic rule of thumb.
Yeah, and so I felt bad about that. So, but this is just their name.
But
Marta Batanides.
We are on a path. We can tell it is a significantly winding path, and occasionally sort of bizarrely loops back in over itself. But it is a path, and we're moving forward.
Thank you. That's true. That's very true.
So in this conversation, I think first of all, metaphorically and thematically and meta-politically, very important conversation. But first, the tidbit that Picard, first of all, it's a nice little character moment where Picard talks about how he only just then realized how much he enjoyed those late night, late shift watch duties because there was sort of silence in the open space and all that. Mm-hmm. But he mentions he was on the Reliant. Was he on like Khan's Reliant before Khan got it, that Reliant, or was it like a later version?
Right.
The timeline might work out because he was a cadet
as an ensign.
Yeah, if he was an ensign,
or
yeah,
a midshipman or an ensign.
Yeah, I think he said he was an ensign.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to look into the dates and see what squares away. I think it probably would make sense time wise because obviously in Star Trek 2, where we see the Reliant, Kirk is old and he's all complaining about being old, and everyone's that whole movie is about coming to grips with aging and utility, which is relevant to this story as well, because that's Picard is doing that but in his own Picard style. He's not creating new planets, at least not yet. We haven't seen the end of this season.
How many more episodes are there? 2?
2 more episodes after this. And the producer said that the 9th and 10th episodes effectively play as a long single episode. So be prepared for that. Okay. Obviously, this is serialized.
That's sort of the impression I got. It's like a 2-parter.
I think so. I think, and there might be a more subtle distinction these days since these are all serialized shows. Mm-hmm. However, even in the serialized shows, there is sort of generally some sort of 5-act sort of structure, and sometimes if they extend that over two episodes, it does have a different feel to it.
Because what's the deal with the commercial breaks?
What's the deal with the commercial breaks?
You notice how they have clear, like, if this wasn't a streaming show and they were playing this in syndication,
they're straight up act break, because maybe one day CBS All Access will offer a like ad tiered version, or maybe they do that for outside, for other country streaming services.
Seems like in the future they wouldn't have any commercials.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So because fuck that shit.
Or maybe it's just a stylistic thing, and I think some shows just
you have scenes and you have acts. But it's like it's very pronounced and sometimes it's a little it's a little bit jarring. You're like, well, why are we having a commercial here?
It fades to black. You think you're going to see a commercial for Lucky Strike cigarettes?
Yeah.
So Rios was talking to Picard that scene. We talking about Captain Marta. And he was saying the ban itself was a betrayal because he was like, he thought Vandermeer thought like Starfleet betrayed him, and he was like, well, they did, but maybe like on a more intense general abstract level than that. And then and Picard is saying, we could have sidestepped this whole thing, but we gave way to fear.
This is the most, or let me rephrase that. This is the least veiled of the political message of this entire series. The ban itself was a betrayal. The Muslim ban, the immigrant ban, right? The Zatvash, they set a trap, but we could have merely sidestepped it. Instead, we gave way to fear, like you said, right? That is the Russians affecting interfering with elections and doing things on Facebook and things like that. And other people, Trump himself, drumming up fear. That's a trap, and people fell for it. That's the perspective that the producers are taking. I think I think other things could be interpreted many different ways and much more openly. This seems to be more of a direct, like, this is today. This is a message for today that the future is left for us to write, and we have powerful tools. Rios, openness, optimism, and the spirit of curiosity. And all they have is secrecy and fear is the great destroyer. But right or wrong, that's a different debate to have. But I do think that is, to me, I think that's a very clear political point that they're trying to make.
Yeah, Rios in the middle. Even when Rios considers Picard's point of like how they gave way to fear, Rios is, I guess, giving the response that represents fear, which is like, there's a lot of them.
They're scary.
And Seb Chaleb, who has been established as this basically an antichrist, right? The coming of the antichrist,
the destroyer. What do they say? Seb Chaleb.
Seb
Chaleb. I think.
That's one of the ones where I'm
Chaleb.
not sure what the fuck they're saying.
But she's basically coming to town, right? Because she is the threshold. She makes him cross the line. She makes him cross. She's.
Seb Chaleb is coming to town.
She's the one that brings them over the edge to the other side, and so she's basically established as an antichrist kind of figure. But yeah, so anyway, his thing was his response was one of the fear response, which is, there's a lot of them. What are we going to do? And so that is a common response, but it does also bring up the idea, I guess, of like, when do you have to worry about numbers? I don't know.
No, I think that's a very good point, because these are not easily answered questions, right? It doesn't matter what your sort of political, social, moral philosophy is. These are not easy questions. If they were easy questions, it would be a lot easier just to convince 90% of the people that this is the way to go.
True.
Even in the face of nefarious actors, right? Where people can take advantage, though, is in the difficult gray area questions where part of the question is not just a moral question, it's about your degree of willingness to self-sacrifice, for example, right? If we all paid more taxes, then we could get more services for people. And there's a debate about the degree of which that is good or bad. Other people would argue you help people and then they become dependent, and people would counter and say that's crazy, and people just are, different situations require help, and then it's a matter of degrees and all that. These are not easy questions, but they are easy to manipulate people. And I think even in the future, in TOS time, in TNG time, in Picard time, people are still human, and no matter how quote unquote enlightened they get,
they're not going to stop having strong feelings about things,
and the same situations are going to exist. So in other words, people, I know there's been a lot of somewhat confusing. I get where people are coming from online, but there's been a lot of sort of discussion and complaint about this show saying like, I thought this was a post-scarcity society. It is. It's still shown to be a post-scarcity society, at least within the Federation. There's nobody starving. It's just like Rafi's situation is fine. She lives in a nice little, she calls it a hovel because she's pissed off that she's not doing her what she wants to do, but she's living and getting food, and she's fine. And she just doesn't have the job she wants because that's the currency in the world.
She has like all sorts of emotional problems and life issues.
Yeah, and Rios is in the same situation.
The people that are disappointed in this show are the people that expected like Picard to like jump back on the bridge of a spaceship and just have another TNG.
Have a bunch of like crazy adventures where there's some like mildly racist or transphobic adventures.
Yeah.
Well,
that's probably what they wanted.
Well, I mean, what would people?
So like, I wasn't expecting this. This isn't Picard.
When people say, "I thought we were beyond scarcity," yes, to a point, but I mean. There's other places other than the Federation.
Yeah,
exactly. Were they talking about this as a universal thing? Because
it's a big old galaxy.
Because Star Trek's established that the Prime Directive don't interfere with people's shit because they may not be at the level or at
there's the Orion Syndicate and the Ferengi.
I mean, the Federation's in like parts of maybe 2 quadrants, right? Maybe?
Yeah, Alpha and Beta,
like parts of them. Like,
and
not the entire quadrant.
This is. I really like having discussions with people about, sort of the merits, the literary merits, plot merits, contradictions in plot, contradictions in motivation. That does happen a lot, particularly on Voyager, but it does happen a lot where there are these problems exist, and it's fun to critique them, and people are going to come at things with different opinions and have less of a problem with some things or really like some directions and stuff. That's part of the fun of being in fandom is not just enjoying the programs, but getting together with people and talking about them and discussing them. It does somehow, again, to each their own, everyone can have their opinion. I do get a little bit frustrated when the more perplexing arguments come up, like one of them being like, what the fuck is Rios talking about? He's got to get paid. I thought they didn't have money in the future. They've had some form of money since TOS. There's always been some form of, the idea has been that, yeah, you don't need money to go get fucking food and shit and walk around. But if you want to interact with the Ferengi or the Bolians or whatever, you're going to have something to give them.
I mean,
not
Latinum was introduced in DS9, right?
It was, but they had credits on TOS in addition to other forms of fucking money, because like when they were dealing with, Harry Mudd or whatever, Harry Mudd was not, his vocation was not selling tribbles for free.
Yeah.
He wasn't just spreading,
because he loved
money.
Because it was his true love.
I mean, the Federation can exist in some sort of situation where they don't have money in the traditional sense, but there's going to be other standards in the galaxy because it's so effing big. Like,
and
there's
even
not
in the
just
Federation,
one standard. There's several standards.
Even in the Federation, there's an implication that it's not like everyone's living like fucking Louis XIV.
Right.
There's still allocations of space and where you live and stuff. And while there might be more freedom of options, the main concept has always been you're not going to starve. You're going to be fine. But now it's going to be, and they make this explicit on the Orville, which I think is really great because it was implied on Star Trek, particularly TNG. But on the Orville, they make it explicit that when you get rid of cash, the currency becomes reputation.
Yeah,
personal
I do
and
remember
professional reputation. So the deal being is Jurati, she can study as much fucking android stuff as she wants, but if she wants to fucking work at the top tier places, then she's got to earn that, and then that gets you something back, because then you get to use those resources and work with those people, and that is really such a wonderful idea for how to run a society.
I was just gonna say that wouldn't that be that? I mean, who knows what's possible, because it seems the way we see things now. Like, at least I'm going to speak for myself, the way like I've sort of like, just growing up, in the US or world or whatever you want to call it. The
Capitalism.
idea, capitalism.
Welcome to Earth.
The idea of the currency as reputation seems like so nice and so beautiful, right? Because it's like, wow, that's when really good shit happens, because you want it to be good because people will appreciate it, And so the idea is higher quality things, right? And people are doing things
because
that
you assume that someone's going to get a good reputation because they're doing something good,
right? Doing something,
not because they're manipulating the system to get a good reputation.
I mean, they're right, and it's even like it's the old joke though of like, right, the the evil corporation, right? It's the corporations aren't doing these things for a reputation of. Well,
it's not for good or evil.
It's just to make money,
profit maximizer,
right? And so
it's like a fucking whale eating krill.
It's just numbers.
I guess the idea is, maybe you could like be a lie and a cheat and be have folly and like think that that will somehow give you a good reputation. But I think generally speaking, right?
I think we could argue that it's not necessarily good or bad when you have a reputation. It can go both ways, because you see that the people in Star Trek 6 or the people in Picard, they're looking to change, for lack of a better term, foreign policy, galactic policy, internal government structures, etc. None of that is going to affect people eating. Right now, the idea is in a post-scarcity society, it is not that life is perfect for every motherfucker. It never was. Not again, going back to TOS, it was never perfect for everybody. Even on TNG, people had some shit they were dealing with.
It's not going to change the cost of bread.
The idea is that you're not worried about medical stuff, largely, other than rare, weird shit. You're not worried so much about food and water, and you get some housing that'll be nice, and you can listen to records and that you replicate and shit like that. But you could want to become powerful and affect universal events and fight, agitate for war against the Klingons. So that might not be great, but it's still the same concept of.
It's hard for us to think of because we are used to a different framework where everything's based on like sort of making money and
remuneration
and striving to make
a reputation. I guess when I think about it, reputation doesn't necessarily have to be good or bad. Reputation, it makes me think of Fallout, the game Fallout and Mass Effect. If you get a bunch of good points, I think Mass Effect was called Paragon, and Fallout is just karma. You're a good person, you get to talk to certain people, but then you don't get to talk to the bad people.
I like that.
So if you go bad, you get to talk to the bad people.
Skyrim's a little like that too.
Yeah. Skyrim and Fallout, they were both made by the same. Well, there's a whole history on that, but so that's kind of keep a balance there. It's interesting.
One thing to think about is that one thing that's appealing about let's call it the TNG system, because I think it's more fully formed in the TNG world and fleshed out a little bit. This idea that there's post-scarcity and that there is this reputation-based currency, right? That's a great kind of future thing. But the other thing that's brilliant about it, and that you don't even need to be that far along with, if we did and I'm not necessarily advocating for this, but the idea behind a basic minimum income, and not I like Andrew Yang, but not the Andrew Yang was, looking for, a few $1,000s per month kind of thing, or per year or whatever, extra. If you really gave everyone a basic minimum income, let's just imagine, forget about the economic tax implications for the moment. Let's just say
like so many thousand a year, and that's
it. and adjusted for whatever. But the idea being, you give everyone the resources, and then maybe not even cash. You could argue that you just provide people the resources they can go into a store and get so much. Maybe it's credits, like in the in TOS era. But regardless,
isn't that what food stamps are?
Kind of. It depends on who's the president at the time.
Yeah.
So the idea being, in one of the problems with capitalism, one of the benefits of capitalism, I should say, to start out with, is that it really it promotes a lot of efficiencies that are not available in the mercantile system or the sort of Soviet style or Chinese style, old Chinese style communist systems. Centralized government authorities. Mercantile system is where it's sort of stratified with the merchant levels and then sort of the different buyers and all that. Those systems, capitalism has been an improvement on in many ways, because it does increase efficiencies. The competition promotes like certain curves and stuff like that, and leaving aside the complicated regulations and lack of regulations and all that other stuff that sort of can pervert capitalism. The concept of capitalism it is more efficient than those other systems, and that's one reason why it has prevailed in a number of different country types or government types. In dictatorships and democracies and monarchies, etc. Capitalism sort of is won out. But that being said, capitalism is not an efficient system. It is really poorly efficient. It's just relative to other systems is an improvement. But in this system, imagine a system where you, as a person, would never have to worry about the basics in terms of being food, shelter, medicine. Just like, so the basic shit's going to be taken care of. The things that we are terrified of, that we work hard for and often still can't afford, even if we work 2 jobs.
So you can focus on something else.
You can focus on whatever you want to fucking do.
Well, there's already there's already
that's more efficient.
There's already some study people talk about saying about how I don't know how they rate happiness, but the idea being like you make up to a certain amount of money, and yes, you will be happy. And that's probably changed, I imagine, since the
study's pretty recent. But the idea is that.
But then after that, after above that, you don't really. Whatever happiness means,
it's a point of diminishing return.
But yeah, right. It's an asymptotic.
Well, like if you want nicer stuff and you want more money, then you just get a nicer job.
Yeah, but the point,
even a job.
No, the point being though is that regardless of how much money you make, your happiness only improves to a dollar amount, a literal dollar amount, and after that, it doesn't really have as much of effect, and you find people don't because it's the idea of
it's still very materialist.
Because the idea being yes, money will make you happier when you don't have to worry about the minimums of staying alive.
Right.
And the thing is that,
but that's not even really being more happy. That's just being at the level,
secure,
being at the level,
it's just like staying above.
But a key thing,
staying afloat.
A key thing, and this is something that they at various times make a point of in Star Trek, is that when you have a system where people don't have to worry about the basics, now any effort they put into is for their own reward. And of course, you're going to have lots of people who just want to sit around, do nothing, and watch, play on the holodeck or whatever. But most people are going to want to pursue some vocation, and now that
at least a little bit of
and now that their vocation is not tied to the industry their father worked in, is not tied to the college they were able to go to. I mean, obviously it is. You have to get it, but the point is they don't have to make choices. They
don't have to be a transporter technician just because your fucking dad was.
I give the example of my dad, who was born in 1940, right, and he was extremely good at golf and extremely good at music. And he loved playing in music and playing in bands. And if you ask me, one of those would have been he played trombone.
Oh, word.
Yeah. And if you ask me his goal, if he could have picked any career, he would have chosen one or both of those to pursue as his career. But instead, he ended up pursuing law school, because when he was growing up, the main options you had were law school, military, or physician. If you wanted to get into the tier of work that would get the amount of money that was considered what you were going to need to grow up and lead what quote unquote happy life.
Yeah,
right?
because back then you could go into the military and do something technical, and you would be on the cutting edge of some technical field in the military.
And those were great options, but they were
plus you had a kick-ass benefits.
There were
package.
3 options, there were 3 options that were, by the way, not available to everybody. Like women, minorities, had much more limited access to these particular options. But the options have expanded, which is great. We are now in a time where we do get more sort of choice. We have a little bit more wiggle room than prior generations in terms of what we can pursue a living, right? That's great. But we are still not in a position where we can actually do the thing that is the best use of our skills, talents, and time, right? And that's what they can do in Star Trek. And that's going to lead to a lot of nothing, and it's going to lead to a lot of bad bands, but it's also going to lead to those geniuses who
That's just how it works. Yeah.
Those geniuses who we've never heard, and we've never seen their inventions or heard their music or seen their art, because from the age of 10 they had to work in like the fucking mill or whatever.
But they still have to find a place to live that fits their desires. Like, if they want to be a loud drummer, they can't live in a small, I mean, they probably have hardcore soundproofing in the future, but it's still like the idea of
audio soundproofing shields up.
There are still certain preferences that are scarce, like where you want to live, things like that. You obviously all can't live in the same spot. That would be just hilarious.
But the galaxy's really big now, and
that's
you
true. Though
you can go all over.
You got all sorts of options.
How many
there's going to be planets that are pretty shitty, and there's going to be planets that are pretty good, and everybody's going to want to live on the planets that are pretty good, of course.
Well, some people want Latinum, and you can't. The whole deal with Latinum is you can't replicate Latinum or whatever. So that's
and it's what you see. The physical part is gold. That's why it's called gold pressed Latinum,
because it's liquid.
Like it's useless, it's worthless gold.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. So I think we got to get towards wrapping this up.
Is there a joke?
No. Well, you.
I didn't have any jokes planned.
Are we going to talk about
didn't
listener feedback?
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily. We're not quite done yet talking about.
Yeah, we got.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One point, I have to Jesse jumping the gun.
Yeah,
jumping the gun.
Let's get this podcast over.
Jesse's ready to. He's got a ready. Jesse's ready to self-isolate.
This all came from when Picard was talking about
social distancing.
Talking to Rios about, openness, optimism, all that good stuff. It's kind of, I don't know if this was done humorously, or was meant to be humorous, but I thought it was kind of funny. He was just about to go expound on this whole subject for like another sort of like, a monologue. And then they just came in like, hey, something's happening, whatever it was. And he's like, oh, okay.
What he says is that's when he says, all they have is secrecy and fear. And fear is the great destroyer, Rios, not. And then he was about to say, Soji, and then Soji walked in, right?
Oh, hey, okay. Hey, I didn't notice that. That was Soji. That was done. That wasn't done for that wasn't done to shut him up. It wasn't done to shut him up. It was done to sort of say that. I thought it was funny when she was doing all that robot stuff with the screen, doing the navigation stuff because they were doing it her way. And this is when they all agreed on it. She was wearing long sleeve shirts, but she was doing that thing where you have the thumbs out.
The shirts, dude. There's a shirt that does that. You stick there's a hole in there.
Yeah.
It's a designed, engineered hole for thumbs.
I just thought it was like a hip thing to do. She's being a hip early 20-something, 3 years old, and but then she was being a super robot. I just thought that was fun.
I liked how as they're the again, this is the second time they did it this episode, as they're going into the transwarp conduit, the TNG theme starts up, but then before it resolves completely, Narek's ship slips in there.
Oh yeah.
And it goes all like sour, it goes all discordant. The TNG theme goes like which I thought was cool. Oh, and Dan, you mentioned the Antichrist, and the one thing I did want to mention is which I think it's a really good analogy about that. Seb Sheneb is sort of an Antichrist figure.
She talks about hell too.
Yeah,
the Jurati talks about hell
and the destroyer and the destruction. However, in real life, even though quote unquote real life, storybook life, the Antichrist stories, there are people, including there's the Church of Satan is a modern version, but it goes way back. The idea is that the Antichrist was interpreted one way by one group of people, became dominant, versus the people the other way, that the Antichrist is really the rebirth.
Right.
It's really the cleansing of the earth in a good way, right? And
because there's just some vagueness in like Revelations or something.
Well, and it's also there's this idea, and also those books were written and the sort of tone and language was really settled on later in the Middle Ages. Yeah. But the idea that and we've discussed it before, the idea that you have this, whatever it is, memories, prophecy, whatever it is, warning, the admonition, but the idea that you can misinterpret, right? And Picard talks about how the Romulans are all just secrecy, fear, secrecy.
Yeah, maybe the Romulans just freaked out,
and maybe they were not the best people to find this shit.
Yeah,
they were the first ones to stumble across it.
If some Beta Zeds found it,
the Bolians would think it'd be all about like hair cutting.
Right,
like hair cutting.
That's the haircut guy.
Don't invent electronic clippers,
Mr. Ma.
So this is actually the scene where Girardi talks about thousands of centuries ago, when originally it said hundreds of centuries, and then later on, I think it's Raffi says hundreds of thousands of centuries.
Maybe this is where, like, if you notice it and you write a letter and send it to CBS, and if you're the first person to write this letter noting this discrepancy, you will win a prize. They'll let you be an extra on a future episode of Star Trek Picard.
I don't doubt that is
every
what
one of
happen.
our listeners. I recommend you go do this. Try this out. Send letters to the CBS. I think you just type CBS Los Angeles, California. I don't even think you need a specific address. It's kind of like sending stuff to the North Pole.
So that was the scene where she goes, "Do you believe in hell? Neither did I until I saw it."
And Picard makes that hilarious face where he's like,
Yeah, well, she was being fucking dramatic. First of all, she was being dramatic. It's just like, even if she did see some fucked up shit, that was some dramatic shit to say. But that sort of set up that he was. Yeah, it is funny when he's asked. It's like, "Do you think I'm?"
It's like, "Are you fucking crazy?"
Yeah,
it's like, I'm gonna have to deal with a crazy person.
Right. And when Soji asked if Data loved him, he was like, and then here said, it's crazy. I don't know. Let's be honest about this.
I don't know, man.
But anyways, that sort of led into the idea of Seb Cheneb or whatever being the Antichrist, because she was talking about being in hell, and then it was the Antichrist. But then what further goes about, you guys are talking about how the Romulans may have misinterpreted it, and it was that gave her that memory. So maybe O presented her with a fucked up memory, because it's already couldn't have been the same one anyways.
And
so she's seeing hell, but maybe it's not. I don't fucking know.
The fact that she's part Vulcan, she can do the mind meld. The fact that she's part Romulan, she can manipulate it to make it
right. Because she can lie. Vulcans can't lie, but she's allowed to lie because she's
Vulcans
can
lie.
Well, they're not. It's not logical.
They're not supposed to.
She's going to have a different.
It's not logical.
They lie
a
all
different
the time.
approach
Spock
to
is
it
fucking
from
lying
her
left and right.
her Romulan.
It's like a lie, Captain. An error.
It's not really not supposed to. It's just illogical. And why would you do something illogical? That doesn't make sense.
As we've discussed before, the Vulcans are it's like anybody who follows a particular philosophy. They never do it 100%.
No, I just think that
humans.
would be
those Vulcans are human.
That would be their reasoning.
Would
be their reasoning.
Of course,
Baptists and drinking and Episcopalians and dessert forks.
Star Trek
Episcopalians
2
and forks, salad forks.
Using the right fork at the meal.
Oh, is that a joke about Episcopalians?
I know how to use the right fork. The meal, it goes outside to in.
The joke about the people in
in.
hell. It's like, these were the Baptists that drank and danced, and these were the Episcopalians that didn't use the right fork.
Yeah, I think my dad told me that joke.
Yeah, it's a very old joke, I'm sure.
Star Trek 2 with the Genesis device is a similar concept.
Genesis does. You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does. You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does. Genesis does. Genesis does.
You can't do this on Nintendo, but you can do all this other stuff on Nintendo.
I'm sorry. I totally interrupted you, Patrick.
TurboGrafx 16, which was actually just two 8-bits.
Two 8-bits, not a 16-bit.
Processors.
Not 16-bit.
Fucking fraud
motherfuckers. But though that chip thing,
you
they
had
used
that shit,
those cards for the.
I saw that shit at your place.
Yeah, I didn't own it at the time it was available.
You owned it like
later
on.
Yeah.
what I was referring to was the Genesis device, which both destroys and creates simultaneously. And that we could be looking at a similar
Christ.
a similar sort of metaphor here for the coming of synths. And by the way, I forget if we mentioned it or not, but I did want to mention I was a little bit confused, by the end of the episode, after you hear from Girardi and everybody and I put all the pieces together, the impression you get is that it's not that the synths, you create the synths and then they evolve and they take over the universe. It seemed to be that you evolve the synths and then somebody else notices. And so that's
because
I think
Rios was the one he was talking about Cochrane and the Vulcans. And that's really what the analogy is. It's like somebody notices and
does it mean
they show up and you're
does it mean that they had malice to begin with?
Are they going to say that the entire universe is a simulation and that like when you start creating synths that like it causes some like weird bug where like the people playing the video game of the universe notice and they start intervening and they just like reboot the universe or something.
Right. And then even if you're a Romulan, you like hit yourself in the head.
Maybe
with
it
a
hurts
rock.
when the
pull your eyeballs
scratch
out.
your fucking eyes out.
You know how everyone's afraid of if the universe is a simulation, or even if it's not.
I'm not afraid of that.
There's an issue with the universe. There's some math numbers where it could be that like if a couple molecules go one way or the other, it'll cause an imbalance. It'll just vaporize the entire universe effectively in an instant. But everyone's always worried. Okay. Let me rephrase that. Not everyone. Many people are concerned that the universe will just blip out of existence one day, right? Which is fine. It's sort of a meaningless concern because if it happens, you don't have to worry about it. So effectively, you don't have to worry about it.
It doesn't change anything.
It's one of those things.
You're just going to blip out of existence.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But
it's one of those things you can, but dinna say.
Didn't say?
You can, but you didn't say.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
You didn't say?
You
Here's
didn't
the
I didn't
here's
didn't
the
say.
thing we talk all-
I didn't say.
Here's the twist. Here's the twist on it, right? I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, I'm running a simulated universe, and inside that universe is the people, and they think they're real and all that. Something goes wrong, I get bored, whatever. I get annoyed. The cheat code didn't work right, or
SimCity
whatever.
money code.
I set it on a medium when I should have set it on easy, but regardless, I fucking kicked the plug out the wall, or I reset.
Turn Coke into Pepsi.
And I reset this universe, right? I reset the universe. Boom! It's gone in a blip. However, it's quite possible. It's quite possible that given the physics of how the universe works internally to our perception in terms of the limitations of the speed of light and all that
You
other
can't
stuff,
just turn it around so quickly.
that even if from the perspective of the person playing the simulation would be turned off in an instant. If from our perspective, it was just watching the universe slowly be vaporized bit by bit, and we just have to wait until it gets there.
It's kind of like,
and potentially for like millions of years, just be like, we've detected some disturbances. If there would even be any warning.
You can't just turn around something that's moving fast. You have to slow it down. And
maybe it really is painful to be reset.
well, like it's like fruit flies, right? They live a couple days or whatever. To them, it's a lifetime, So you ever notice that when you look at big things move, they look like they're moving all slow, but they're moving really fucking fast. It's because the bigger you
according
get,
to them,
relatively everything looks so much quicker the smaller it is, and everything looks bigger. Everything looks bigger the bigger it gets. Everything looks slower the bigger it gets. So that physically that manifests itself, but it also manifests itself in our interpretation of space-time.
Yes.
Because space and time are related.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, I got it.
So
I got it.
Just turning off the simulation, even if it's off, it can already take a brillion years to it actually fully turn off. When to them, it's just a moment.
But there may not be any
Yes.
indicator variables. Now it could be that like, it's like a supernova where the it's everything's from that's being ejected from it. The information is leaving
ejaculated
at the speed of light or close to the speed of light, right? Like the light from, say, a supernova. However, we can detect a supernova, at least, because of the neutrinos, right? Not because they're traveling faster than the speed of light or
in
anything.
those flying little cars in
It's
Dimension X.
because they're generated in the belly of the supernova, and they can actually get through the matter before the light can, because the light is disrupted and takes a while to make its way through the it's slowed down by the medium it's going through, whereas the neutrinos are not.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That gives us
So if we
it
reset
takes
the
a while, but
universe-
we can also detect it before it happens.
Would we see that if the universe was it would be really hilarious if they went this direction? That's the whole thing, because that would blow their minds. That would break their minds. I would believe that would break your mind if Picard was like, "I'm a simulation."
Maybe the speed of light in the non-simulated world is actually twice as fast as our speed of light, and they made it slower just for that reason.
Just to be dickheads.
Yeah, but at this point we can just make up whatever. So yeah, no,
That's true.
but no, that's true. Yeah,
very good, sir.
They could see him coming.
Well, we got to wrap things up, because otherwise we'll be going on too long, and it's just going to be annoying.
This is a very nice podcast.
What? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this has been a good one, I think. Like, windmill turned out to be giants. I had to ask what that was. That from a story?
Don Quixote.
So Don Quixote.
Don Quixote is chasing windmills and
Okay.
calling them
Oh
giants.
yeah,
He
he's
thought they would-
right.
That's why she said let's leave it at quixotic, because quixotic means that you're on a
Quixotic.
mission that
yeah.
is effectively based on
Don
hallucinations.
Quixote.
Quixotic means you're just a dreamer. You're making up a mission that doesn't exist.
I remember that part.
and that's
now.
quixotic, right?
Applicatl, isn't that a quixotic weapon of the aquacatl? It's like a spear. It's a spear sling.
We would have to-
Applicatl, that's
I
a
think we'd have to-
Are you
quixotic
pronouncing
weapon.
that properly?
We'd have to
sir?
call up
Probably not.
Jimmy and ask
That
him.
doesn't-
Is
is that a
this a
Latin
Mexican or South American? Is it within his area of expertise?
Cotal?
Codal, maybe
Quetzalcoatl?
Quixocoatl,
Quetzalcoatl?
Quixocoatl. It's like a spear sling, a sling spear.
Quetzalcoatl?
Quixocoatl, you're my hero. Gonna take pollution. Oh, never mind. I've got embarrassed as I did that.
All right. Any final points before we wrap up things? Because I did want to let people know to definitely check out. I hope you're enjoying this. Write us and let us know if you are. We're keen also just to hear your ideas and what's coming next.
Yeah.
So you can write us.
We take requests.
We do take requests.
Request
and-
for what now?
If
Well,
we want
for
to talk
topics.
about something.
Yeah, because we got
It's like,
after
hey,
Picard's going to be over soon. We're going to have to switch to some other Star Trek topics. It's called It's Got Star Trek.
Because we can't just do a whole series about like names of ships.
Yeah. But what we did is, so a lot of folks, you might not realize if you only started listening to us to listen to the Picard coverage, we do have a bunch of back episodes, and in the first segment leading up to Picard, we did an episode or sometimes multiple episodes on each of the pilot episodes for every Star Trek series. So the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery. We go into great detail and have a lot of fun.
And
talking
the
about-
animated series.
and the animated series. Yeah, I forgot about that. So-
People really like the one we did on the original series. Right?
yeah, the original series, that's been a big hit. So is Encounter at Farpoint. Interestingly, like people have not been listening to the animated series one, and you should. Even if you've never watched it, first of all, you can. They're short. Go check it out. It's totally worth it. If you like Star Trek, you're totally gonna get a kick out of it.
Yeah,
Even
it's
if-
good.
The animated series is really
it's
great.
Some of the
It's totally
stories
in the
are really good.
It's totally in the spirit of Star Trek. Totally.
Yeah, it's really silly in a lot of ways, but it's really awesome in a lot of ways.
Just like Star Trek in general, like the best Star Trek at the best time. So lonely, but but the podcast was a fun podcast because we checked out the first two episodes of the animated series. So definitely go back, check those out if you're bored, if you're under quarantine.
Most
and you're
of those
self-isolating.
podcasts were really fun.
Then send us your thoughts at feedback at itsgotstartrek.com.
Feedback, not feedback.
Feedback, and it's at It's Got Star Trek at multiple different places all around the world in Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and
If it's there, we're there.
yeah. Or you can just search for It's Got Star Trek on Google or on Bing or on DuckDuckGo or on
DuckDuckGo.
Alta Vista.
But if you
web
search on a
crawler.
DuckDuckGo, you got to remember what you search for because it won't remember it for next time. Because that's
That's its whole deal.
That's its whole deal.
Oh shit.
Well, they're trying to be
It's
they're like more
privacy.
privacy
Yeah.
conscious, or at least they say they are.
Yeah. Jesse,
damn.
Medusan astrogation technique.
Oh,
Astro. So I can see how you get
okay.
masturbation
Because
sounds like
You
astroglide.
see, yeah, because
Yeah.
if I remember from what I've read, like in the Next Generation technical manual, like the Medusans are used for some navigation stuff, and those are the things that are like they're in the ship somewhere in their own little
those.
environments.
Oh yeah, those. Yeah, I
Kind
remember
of like the
talking about that.
cetaceans.
And you can't
whales.
you can't interact with those people because those beings, because if you
Them beans.
Beans.
they're
How are
like,
you beans?
they call them Medusans because it's like an analog to Medusan.
¿Cómo está frijoles?
They're gonna drive you nuts if you actually see what they look like. So they're off in their own part of the ship. And I think we talked about this before, but like, yeah, it's this other being that has a lot to do with the navigation.
So it's not like a
Of the
garbanzo
ship.
bean. It's more like a pinto bean.
A bean, yeah.
It's not like a steering wheel in your pants driving you nuts.
Okay.
Was that a joke?
No, that doesn't count.
Oh, fuck. Viridium tracker. What's the deal with Viridium? What's the deal with that? I don't know. It's Meridian.
What's the deal with Viridian?
We gotta hurry up because I have to pee.
Okay,
Dude, this motherfucker's got to pee.
real quick. Emmett. Emmett was the name of the fighter guy.
Yeah, he's the
Was he
attacker,
drunk
too.
the whole time during that meeting? What was
Yeah,
going on
he's
there?
always drunk.
How can a hologram be drunk? I mean, I get it, they're
he looked
humans, but
hungover.
did they? Yeah, like, can holograms get drunk?
Yeah, why not? They program them to have fun. You know?
Program
Come
to
on.
have. Can you really program me
Come
to
on.
have fun?
So lonely.
So
So self-isolation.
No chronoton field. Gravimetric shield. Be damned.
Yeah, I know, right?
Be damned.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
All right, so
She could have fucked that table up when she smashed it, but she didn't.
She didn't.
I'm really glad that there's people out there that are interested in our podcast and they like to listen to us talk.
You're gonna make it take a lot longer until you get to pee now.
Yeah, I know, because we have to talk about that now.
No, we don't. That's
Yes,
all.
we
That's
do.
all we have to say.
That's all you
Thanks
had to
for
say.
listening.
So we basically talked all though about like the big I guess it was the reveal of it was the Romulans behind the Borg or behind the synthetics attacking. They used the synthetics to attack.
Right. In
So
case
not
you
to fuck the
didn't-
humans up, but to get the
In
humans to
case
fuck
you
the
had
synths up.
any doubts,
Yeah,
like,
it seemed
this
pretty.
was-
It seemed
yeah.
like it was going somewhere in that
It was the
direction
Romulans.
because the Romulans didn't like the synths.
The Romulans don't like
Zadvaj.
the Zadvash and the
Zadvaj.
Kawat Malat, and everyone's trained in baklava. That's why they use the disruptors.
And they all know Krav Maga.
Nah,
There's there's baklava that has like walnuts, and there's baklava that has like pistachios.
I like the pistachio.
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's,
like
that's
that.
really.
But
I mean, it's
pistachio's
all
the
good,
deal.
but the pistachio is the better.
Oh, the last question I had was when
Or even cashew.
when Rios was talking about after Vandermeer shot the people, he said, "I went at him pretty hard." Does that mean he like punched him in the face, or does it mean he guilt tripped him for the next 2
No,
minutes?
I think he just guilt tripped him. I think he
But
was
he
like,
killed himself
what the
like
fuck.
But okay, yeah, because he killed himself like 2 minutes later,
Yeah,
right?
he did not expect the dude to blow his brains out.
Right. So I'm wondering how he manifested. So he was just like, "What the fuck?"
From
Yeah.
his perspective, he's having a lovely dinner. His
Yeah.
captain gets a call
Oh, yeah,
from
that's
Starfleet,
traumatic, for
comes
sure.
back in, blows, just murders 2 people, and then he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And the dude is like, "You know what? Good point."
Yeah.
and when
There's probably some guilt there.
and when Emmett stuck his 2 fingers in his mouth, he put them in like he did it proper.
Yeah.
it was, like,
Because-
it was upsetting because
Yeah.
he's just like,
even if this dude was an agent,
Yeah, point it to the top of your head.
even if this dude was an agent for the Romulans, like he probably had a close connection with Rios, and the fact that Rios was like, "Dude, what the fuck,
Dude.
and so he was like, "Yeah, this is fucked up."
octonary.
Yeah, how does that even work? How does that planet?
It
Like,
doesn't.
You put a planet between like
That's how it
eight
doesn't work.
suns, and it doesn't get like, pulled apart.
I believe the most
That's
common
a lot of gravity.
systems are binary
Mm-hmm.
stars. Like our star system is actually more unusual. It's unusual to have 1 star. I think the most common is 2
like
stars,
2.
and then 1 star. I think 3 stars are tricky.
It's
the
tricky?
octonary, yeah.
That's a lot of gravity.
It's
man.
tricky.
It's the
tricky.
The mechanics I think would be very difficult. Although they do make the point with the octonary anyway. They're like, yeah, somebody probably would have
Somebody
to
build that
do
shit.
that and then do it all, which is kind of interesting.
Could
And
they have used something like that Borg transwarp network?
Well, the thing is, online, some people, I don't know, I haven't verified this, I haven't gone back and looked deep into the records, but some people mentioned that the Iconians may have had the ability to move like planets or stars around. And they're like an old extinct civilization,
Right.
and they have that they can travel like really fast to distant places deal. So I don't know. It could be an Iconian thing. No idea. But otherwise, I think that should do it. That should wrap it up for tonight. I say good night. What do you say, Jesse?
I say good night. Thanks for listening.
All right. How about you,
I'm going
Dan?
to take a whiz.
Jesse's going to take a whiz. How about you, Dan? What do you say?
I already expressed too much information.
What do you say?
Hasta la bye-bye.
Hasta la bye-bye. Very good. We'll see you all next week.
What happened to Vandermeer?
Got them in the middle.
Oh, well, that's awful. Do we know why?
It's one of those things you can, but you do not see. Turns out we don't actually can. I can feel the answer, or a ghost of it. This may violate my Hippocratic coding, but after the whole thing was over, Captain Rio suffered some kind of breakdown. That's why he was discharged.
Whole thing? What whole thing? Something happened on the Ibn Majid. Something that had to do with Vandermeer and a girl named Jana.
Don't bother searching for ship's logs or personal records on the Ibn Majid.
Why?
It was all classified.
Because? Oh, come on. One of you knows. What happened on the Ibn Majid?
One of us knows. And it's safe who's a piping and off you off the fang. So true, Ian.
I mean, it's not even a language.
Now, no one has to tell an old Aberdeen pub crawler how to applaud, Captain.